Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. This is a story about what if Naruto has a bijuu quirk in My Hero Academia. Before I start, please support for more amazing content and do consider subscribing to my channel and share this video with your friends. This is written by FANREADER26 and link in description and support writer. Let's start the video. Chapter 1. The Offer. We live in a world of powers. When you step through any doorway, you are most likely going to find yourself in a comic book scenario. Especially with how 80% of the world's population has a superpower. In what everyone calls a quirk. In such a world, it was obvious that there would be people that would want to do whatever they wanted and disregard the safety of others. Because of this, the world needed people to combat them with their own powers. And thus it became a world of superheroes and villains. Fights that look like they were ripped straight out of a comic book became common to everyone so much that manga that deals with the superpowered teens lost all meaning. Quirks made their mark on the world and how everyone handles day-to-day lives. And this is the world we live in now. The green-haired boy was walking through the street with a downtrodden look as he held onto a ruined notebook. Maybe Kachin was right, maybe I should just withdraw from UA. This boy was Izuku Midoriya, a 14-year-old boy that had the ambition of becoming one of the greatest heroes in the world, much like his idol, All Might. The main issue was something that had become a sort of negative side to being part of this world. He was born without a quirk. Labeling him quirkless. Being labeled as such when he was only 4 had him become the target of bullying from every one of his classmates, as it was now considered weird to not have a quirk and made him easy prey. Despite how he was told that he couldn't be a hero by everyone in his life, this did not stop his ambition, his dream. So he began to study any hero and villain he could, causing him to be somewhat of an encyclopedia of current and past heroes. Though sometimes the discrimination he gets does get to him. Earlier in the day, one of his classmates, Kitsuki Bakugo, once a friend to Midoriya, had bullied him about the choice of school he wanted to go to. Bakugo used his quirk, Explosion, to blast a notebook and told Midoriya that he had better chances of becoming a hero in the next life and he should jump off a building so he can die and be reborn. Midoriya almost considered withdrawing his application, but he immediately shook it off as he was close to reaching his dream. And it all started at UA High. Someone stop him. Midoriya looked up to see that on the other side of the street was a multi-armed man, running through everyone with bags of cash in his grasp. The man had shaggy brown hair that covered his eyes and was wearing a ripped-up muscle shirt and casual jeans. He had 4 arms, 2 on each side, and each one had one bag spilling money out of it. And they say crime doesn't pay. Well, not only does it pay, but I'm going to be living the good life from now on. Looking ahead, he saw that there were too many people in his way, so he moved into the street, dodging some of the cars that honked him, and began to run in the middle of the road. This caused a few crashes since the drivers began to swerve out of the way to not hit him. Call the police. Or the heroes. Midoriya decided to follow the man from the sidewalk he was on, since he was excited to see a potential hero versus villain fight. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a pencil, so he could write down anything new he could learn from whichever hero might come to stop this villain. I wonder who might come. Maybe one of the newer heroes like Montana, Lady, or Kamui Woods. He wasn't the only one that ran after the villain, as many other civilians chased the villain so they could watch the show. It was one of these civilians that noticed something standing a good distance away in the path of the villain. Look. Everyone stopped in their running, including the villain as they looked to see who it was that came to the rescue. It's Vigilante. In the middle of the road was a man that was covered from head to toe in black. A black hoodie vest that had several holes in the torso, a black long-sleeve shirt, black jeans that also had holes in them, black worn-out shoes, and black gloves. His face was also covered up with a face mask that covered up the lower half of his face and orange visor glasses. Really? You decided to rob a few convenience stores in the middle of the day. What, did you think that it was a hero holiday or something? His voice was low-toned and casual. Almost as if he was bored. Think Kakashi's voice. The villain gritted his teeth. Piss off. You ain't even a real hero. Your ass ain't nothing but a wannabe. He shifted his cargo so his lower arms were each carrying 2 each and brought his 2 free hands up in a sort of fighting pose. Midoriya stood at the front of the increasing crowd as he looked on in intrigue. It's Vigilante. He opened his notebook to a certain page that had a simple sketch of the one called Vigilante. It looks like he has changed his usual sunglasses for an orange visor. I wonder if the type of eyewear affects his quirk in any way, though I don't see how it would, since his quirk doesn't have anything to do with his vision, so it might just be more for hiding his identity, he continued to mumble as he wrote down some of his theories about the clothing changes. On the 2 pages of the notebook, he had an image of Vigilante with several sections of texts describing several aspects of the person, including what he had learned about his quirk. As Midoriya wrote about the change, several of the other onlookers started to talk to each other. This should be good. two villains about to take each other on. Hey, Vigilante isn't a villain. Oh yeah, then why do all the heroes want to take him down? He's right. Vigilante isn't anything but a guy that does what he wants when he wants and doesn't care about what happens to anyone else. Then why did he save those people during that attack a few days ago? If it wasn't for him, they would have been crushed by the falling debris. She does have a point. Still, if he was a hero, why isn't he affiliated with any hero agency? The heroes always try to take him in, but he keeps getting away. Back on the street, the villain charged at Vigilante ready to beat the wannabe down so he can get away before a hero showed up. Vigilante stood there nonchalantly waiting for the villain to get close enough. Once the villain threw his punch, Vigilante made his move. The villain didn't know what happened. 1 second he was throwing a punch at the wannabe and the next he felt extreme pain on his back and his head. But he didn't have time to fully register what happened since he was suddenly hit in the face hard enough to knock him out. Vigilante stood over the knocked out villain and sighed. Well, that was easy. He looked around to see all the citizens were staring at him and filming with their phones. He waved at them and shouted out, "Hey, did one of you call the police already?" He received his answer as he backflipped to avoid thick branches that wrapped around the spot he was just standing. Once he landed on the ground he saw that it was Kamui Woods. He waved at him and gave a cheery greeting. "Hey Woodsy. Still trying to sneak up on me? How many times are you going to try that?" Kamui withdrew his branches and turned his gaze to Vigilante. "Till you are behind bars, villain." Vigilante crossed his arms as he shook his head. "You guys are stubborn, you know that." It was then that he looked around before tilting his head, speaking of, whereas he then noticed it getting darker and he jumped to the side to avoid an enlarged hand. He landed away from the two and saw the one he was just asking about it arrived. "Ah, there you are, Montana. Lady. Was wondering when you would show up since you seemed to try and take away Woodsy's spotlight." Mount Lady glared at Vigilante as this was not the first time she had to deal with him. And every time she did, he would do whatever he could to piss her off. "I can't wait to finally get rid of you." Vigilante put a hand on his chest while putting the back of his other hand on his forehead as he gave a dramatic gasp. "How could you say that? And after that passionate moment the other day. I'll never forget our time together. You were my first too. I feel so used." Mount Lady grew a blush at how that could be interpreted and she saw that a bunch of the onlookers were all starting to mumble to themselves with clear blushes on their faces. It was made worse when she saw a reporter had recorded the whole thing. She saw her as she glared at Vigilante. "You little pest. Don't say stuff that suggests that kind of thing." Vigilante was holding his stomach as his shoulders shook, trying to hold back his laughter. He once again leaped to the side as Death Arms came down to punch where he was standing. Rolling to a stop he saw who it was. "Well, Death Arms. It's been a while." He looked at the three heroes that were facing off with him. "I feel like I was invited to a party by accident and everyone just wonders why I'm here. Well, I guess that's my cutest skidoo. Even I can't believe I wrote that." The heroes tensed as they didn't know what he was about to do. But they got their answer when Vigilante ran towards Mount Lady. Said woman reached down and tried to grab him, but he kept slipping away. He ran under her and away from the area. Mount Lady turned to see him running away. "Get back here." She began to give chase as she would not let him get away. Death Arms also gave chase as he knew that his abilities gave him a better chance against the villain. Kamui was about to give chase until he noticed the other villain that was knocked out on the ground. Despite how he wanted to give his assistance in taking down the most infamous menace out there, he had to prioritize. He restrained the villain and looked to the audience and asked, "Did one of you call the police?" The simple-looking man nodded as he pointed at his phone. "Yeah, I told them about the fight between Vigilante and the villain. They should be here soon and they said they sent out a hero to stop Vigilante." Kamui nodded as he wondered who they sent. Midoriya wanted to give chance and watch the rest of the fight, but he noticed the time on a nearby clock post and figured that he should head home. He began walking in another direction as he looked over the new notes he was able to make for the newcomers, Kamui and Mount Lady, as well as small bits of Vigilante. It looks like he didn't use his quirk in the fight, though he did knock out the thief quickly, so he didn't have a need to use it, and in the fight with the heroes, he seemed to only use physical skill, rather than use his quirk. He might not be able to use it as often, since the public has only ever seen his quirk a few times, so it might be that some conditions need to be met before he uses it, though I don't know what that is, he kept mumbling to himself, even when he was away from the crowded area and walking through a tunnel. Behind him, a manhole began to rattle as a dark green slime began to leak out. Back with Vigilante. He was running through the street as he looked behind him to see Mount Lady and Death Arms keeping up with him. He chuckled as he saw the angered look the mountainous woman had on her face. He always thought it was fun to embarrass this woman, since she was clearly doing the hero thing as a way to gain fame. The times she poses sexily when there is a crowd of people and reporters is evidence of that. He also noticed the reporters and much of the crowd following them while on the sidewalk. They really love watching these fights. One of the civilians in the crowd pointed ahead. Look. Vigilante looked ahead and he had to stop at the sight of the newcomer. Well, it's been a while, Endeavor. Said hero was standing in the middle of the street with his arms crossed and a grin on his face. Looks like I finally get to take you down. Vigilante sighed as he put his hands on his hips and shook his head. You say that every time you're sent after me. He turned his head to see that the other heroes were blocking the path he came from and the crowd were now a distance away so they could watch the upcoming fight. The reporter, a female with brown hair put into a ponytail, looked at her cameraman and nodded to him as a way to say that she was ready. Once she saw him lift the camera, she started to do her job. We're back with the continuation of the fight with the infamous being that had not given us a name, but the public had come to call him Vigilante. This man has not given a name to any of the ones he fights, whether they are a villain or a hero. No hero has claimed him to be part of their agency, and after the police have gone through membership, it has come to light that he is not a registered hero. Due to this, he is wanted by heroes and police as he had broken multiple laws with his actions. Though due to his heroics, the people are at odds with each other with whether he should be thrown in jail or taken in to become a hero that can fight alongside many of the respected heroes. Though with how things go with the heroes and Vigilante, it is unlikely that he will ever be accepted as such. Beep beep. The computer screen lit up showing the word alert on it. After it blinked a few times, the screen changed into the newscast showing the fight between Vigilante and the heroes. The owner of the computer tapped a few keys, causing the video feed to move to the corner, and the rest of the screen showed a map, highlighting the area of the fight. The owner stared at the screen for a few seconds before tapping a few more keys which expanded the map. He then focused his gaze on certain locations of the map and nodded. Let us hope I can finally speak with this elusive person. Endeavor flared his power to the degree that it started to melt the concrete under his feet. You won't be getting away this time, villain. He sent a blast of flames at Vigilante's feet to get him moving away from his spot. He already knew that Vigilante would dodge the attack and followed his movements as the criminal jumped over his head and was about to land behind him. Anticipating this, he sent a torrent of flames where he would land. He clicked his teeth as he saw that Vigilante jumped out of the fire like it didn't do anything. Vigilante patted his pants as the base of them were lit on fire. Hey, stop burning my clothes. You don't see me tearing your outfit apart. Because you know I would turn you to ash. He sent another torrent of fire at him trying to cripple him a bit. Vigilante jumped to the side as the fire barely brushed him and he landed on the sidewalk. Once the fire stopped, he once again dodged Montana. Lady who stomped at him. Mount Lady looked at where her foot stomped as she waited for the dust cloud to dissipate so she could see if she got him. She felt a tick-mark pulse as she saw that she had missed and he was leaning on her foot as if nothing happened. While you little she saw him turn his head at her and she just knew that there was a cocky smirk behind all the coverings. I think you missed. She lifted her foot again to stomp at him, but she didn't stop. She saw him dodge her foot and she kept trying to squish him. Hold. Still. You. Little. Pest. At that last one, he sat on top of her foot cross-legged. Don't forget to write your name under your foot's impression. He leaned back as Death Arms threw a punch at him. He leaned into a roll and kicked off Mount Lady's foot once again in the middle of the street and dropped flat on the ground to avoid a fireball. Once it passed, he got to his feet and dusted himself off. Whoa, I almost felt that one. Endeavor was getting angrier as he kept firing at the criminal and missing. He wanted to send out a widespread wave at him, but with civilians around, he needed to contain the damage. This kept going on for a while with every attack the hero sent being dodged so nonchalantly. Vigilante was once again messing with Mount Lady as he ran around her feet. The woman tried to step on him, but she lost focus and stepped on her own foot, causing her to trip and fall. Crash. The crowd had to cover their faces as a bit of dust was picked up from her fall. They all looked to see that the large heroine was a little dizzy from the fall and was shaking her head to get her bearings back. The crowd had been a good distance from the fight, but all this seeing around had gotten the fight closer to them. The newswoman looked back to the camera. It would seem that despite having 3 heroes against him, Vigilante continues to toy with them as if they mean nothing. He is even doing this to the number 2 hero, who hasn't been able to land a single hit on him. She turned back to the fight and saw that Vigilante was jumping around the heroes, no longer just on the ground but the walls as well. Follow him. She ordered the cameraman as she didn't want a single moment lost. The cameraman followed Vigilante as best he could since the black-clad fighter kept hopping around avoiding the attacks aimed to take him down. Vigilante landed on top of a lamppost after deflecting a punch from Death Arms. He gave a fake yawn as he spoke in a laid-back almost bored tone. Come on, guys. We've been at this for I don't know how long. Can't we just call it a day and go on our own merry way? He backflipped off the lamppost and landed on the awning of a restaurant as Endeavor sent out some fire that was hot enough to melt the post. Okay, I think you are getting a little too hot-headed. He turned his head to the left as he saw Death Arms coming at him. Maybe you can talk some sense into him, Death Arms. He jumped up to avoid a double overhead strike and grabbed the edge of the window and planted his feet on the wall as he hung there like a monkey. Endeavor felt his temper at its boiling point and did his best to hold back the heat. He didn't look down, but he knew that he was melting the tar road below him into tar. It's time to surrender, villain. Vigilante slumped as he shook his head. When have you seen me surrender? After all this time, you should really know how this is going to end. He felt the ground rumble and avoided the grasping hand of Mount Lady. He landed on her shoulder and sighed dramatically again. I'm sorry, my fair lady, but it would never work between us. I know you want me badly, but I can't offer myself to you, you're just too old for me. Mount Lady was fuming as she really wanted to beat him into the ground. Now I'm going to enjoy hurting you. She slammed her palm on her shoulder, only to see him jump up on top of her hand. You're worse than a damn mosquito. Aw, you know me so well. He slid down her arm till he got to her elbow, where he jumped off and onto the roof. He then leaped down to another lamppost, then to the ground before running off. It's been fun, but I must be on my way. You're not getting away. Mount Lady stomped after the vigilante, who was parkoured over many different obstacles. He looked behind him to see the three heroes giving chase. Underneath his mask he smirked as he made his way to the entrance of a dark alleyway. Seeing that the news crew and civilians kept up as best they could, he did a showman's bow. Ladies and gentlemen, I thank you for being a wonderful audience, but it is time for me to say bye-bye. He gave a two-fingered salute at them before he jumped into the shadows of the alleyway. Endeavor remembered a few times before how the criminal escaped and would not allow it again. No, you don't. He pulled his fist back as he made it to the entrance and then thrusted it forward, sending a blast of fire into the alley. He kept the flames on for only a second as he didn't want to kill the criminal, no matter how tempting. Once his attack was withdrawn, he looked into the alley, which had several pieces of garbage lit aflame, but there was no sign of the criminal. His flames grew in size as his anger spiked. Damn it. He threw his fists down as he was enveloped by a pillar of fire, only for it to dissipate after a second. Were just as frustrated about the fact that they had once again lost track of the criminal. The news crew had followed the fight and were still recording. It seems that the illustrious vigilante has once again escaped. With how he has evaded not only these heroes but many others as well, it might be left to All Might to bring him in. But will things escalate to that point? And how will the number one hero fare when many, including the number two hero, have failed? Endeavor heard this and gritted his teeth as hated being reminded about not only his failure to catch this criminal, but also being reminded that he was still ranked number 2. He swore to himself, I will incinerate him the next time I see that criminal. He won't escape me again. Unbeknownst to everyone that were still at the site of the fight, they were being watched by the very person that got away. He was on the roof of a building 2 miles away. He sat on the edge of the roof for a full minute before he spoke. No matter how many times we go through this game of cat and mouse, it is still unclear who is the cat and who is the mouse. At some point I figured they would give up. He stood up from the edge and turned around with his arms crossed as he looked toward the water tower that was a couple of dozen feet away. Wouldn't you agree? Out from behind the water tower came a small white animal that looked like a combination of different species. Possibly. The newcomer was wearing a suit and walking upright much like a normal human. Apart from the odd side of seeing an animal acting like a human, another feature that was noticeable about him was the scar he had over his right eye. With how well you have evaded everyone up till this point, I would have to agree with you. Vigilante nodded before looking around to see if there was anyone else. I'm surprised to see someone actually waiting here for me and alone. With how you are nonchalantly standing there, I can either assume that you are stalling me for time till other heroes show up or you want something from me. So who are you? The newcomer raised a paw in a friendly wave as he smiled. I'm the one that can be seen as a bear, a mouse, or a dog, but you can just call me Nezu, and I am here only to talk. He saw that the public named Vigilante nodded and chose to start off with a short explanation. I must say that it was not an easy feat meeting with you. With how your many exploits have been for all this time, it was nearly impossible to calculate where you would be after your next bout with a villain and the heroes. And how exactly did you figure I would end up on this building specifically? I mean, no one else has been able to do that before, and yet here you are being the first. Nezu put his paws behind his back as he stood up straighter and spoke in a cheerful manner, as he was proud to actually get this puzzle solved. It was very difficult. I had watched a recording of your interactions with the heroes and the direction that you would go as you leave the scene. I had then used security cameras to try and find out where you went. Though when I checked the cameras that lined up several spots in the direction you would go, I found that you never go off in a straight line when leaving. I had spent some time going through the footage of one of the battles, and after focusing in many different directions, I had noticed small disturbances that would speed past some of them. Even slowing down the footage, I would only get a blurry frame of you. I must say, you have incredible speed. Vigilante grew sheepish and rubbed the back of his head at being praised about that. Anyway, I went from camera to camera trying to see where you would end up. And then I found myself at a loss as you had merely vanished from them. I figured that you must have stopped somewhere in the area or had gone much faster. I chose to go with the former and used the cameras to see if I could catch a hint of you. It was fortunate that a simple convenience store camera was able to see you from a distance on the top of a building. Searching the store's location, discovering the camera angle and where you were facing, I was able to deduce where you had stopped. After I found this out, I went through the same process for several other battles, regardless of if they were with villains or heroes. Some were unsuccessful, but I soon found out the reason. In every one of your battles, you would always leave the area and stop about 2 miles away from it and look towards where you were once at. But you needed a clear view of it, and if there was no tower or antenna, you would be on the roof. Using this, I was able to determine your pattern. After all this research was done, I had a program installed on my computer to inform me of when you had made an appearance and where the battle was taking place. Even with that, it was a gamble since you have no set direction, and this building was one of 8 other possible stopping points for you, and if I had chosen wrong, I would have to wait for the next battle to attempt a meeting with you. Vigilante chuckled as he shook his head at how complicated the whole ordeal must have been to come up with a possible meeting place. Wow, it sounds like it would have been a headache to think about where I would end up. Nice job in finding out where I would be. Nezu nodded in gratitude. Why, thank you. It was actually rather enjoyable to solve this little puzzle. But that still doesn't tell me why you would want to talk to me. Every other hero tries to take me down the second they see me. What made you think I wouldn't just attack you the second I knew you were there? Nezu smiled. I have examined all of your fights with heroes, and I have seen that you never fight back when a hero attacks you. In all of them, the most you have done is trip them up, causing them to harm themselves, but nothing serious. A fall here and there, perhaps a cut on the hand or face, and many times wet from hydrants or water fountains. The point is that you have never fought back when you were surrounded. You always made an escape, causing no harm. Vigilante shrugged. There isn't a point in hurting what are seen as the good guys. And I find it a good workout getting away from all of them. Nezu nodded. Yes, I can see that as a reason, especially with the minimal damage done to the surrounding area. And there are your heroics as well. Whenever there is trouble, you would appear and save the people from potentially fatal incidents. You always put the people first before the villain. Should someone be in danger, you would ensure their safety first before you incapacitate them. Vigilante nodded as he gestured to himself. Well, you certainly know a lot about my actions, but you're still not telling me why you wanted to talk to me. Nezu cleared his throat. Yes, forgive me. I am here with an offer. What kind of offer? After some time, I have concluded that you are someone that is on the side of the heroes, yet you are not affiliated with any agency. And I wish to offer you somewhere you may have the chance of getting into an agency. I wish to offer you a recommendation to attend UA Academy. Vigilante tilted his head. Why would you want to offer something like that to me? As I've said, I've studied you. I see someone with great potential to becoming a great hero. Although I am unable to distinguish why you are not attempting to become a hero the correct way, and I can only make assumptions about the reason. I wish to extend an olive branch. Vigilante's stance became slack as he uncrossed his arms. Still, why would you think I am the right age to attend UA? From what I heard, it is a school to teach young heroes about the ins and outs of the job. I base the assumption on your height, your mannerisms in battles, and small tells that show your young age. Though I cannot be 100% accurate, I would assume that you are within your teenage years. Wow, you've got an eye for detail. Why, thank you. Vigilante then walked up to tower over Nezu, who showed no sign of being intimidated. In fact, he kept smiling as he looked up. How can you just trust me like that when you don't even know the real me? Nezu nodded, as it was also an odd thing for someone to do. But he had a gut instinct telling him to trust this person. Not only that, but, oddly enough, he felt some sort of kinship with him. I like to believe I am a very good judge of character. Vigilante continued to look at Nezu till he chuckled at the situation. Wanted by the heroes, hated by the villains, and I am being offered a place with the other newcomers into the hero world. Sounds like some manga story. He looked up to the sky as he thought about the experiences he had gone through in his life. To this point, well, this is one of the weirdest things to happen to me since I got to this world. Though not in a bad way. He then looked back down at the still smiling Nezu. You know that you are taking a very big risk in doing this. Nezu nodded in agreement. A great risk, with potentially one of the biggest rewards. Not just for me but for you as well. Vigilante stared at Nezu for a minute before speaking. Honestly, I never thought about being a hero the right way. My life is complicated and the world has thrown things my way that I had to deal with, but I guess this is one of the few times someone offered me another way of living it differently. But I want to think about whether I should accept or not." Nezu nodded again to what Vigilante was saying. "I understand. Despite how prestigious the school is, having something like this offered to you is not something you shouldn't accept immediately." He reached into his pocket and pulled out a small notepad and pen before scribbling on it. Once he was done, he ripped the paper out and brought it up for Vigilante to take. "You may contact me at this number." Vigilante looked at the paper in Nezu's hand before taking it. Nezu put the items away as he nodded. "I do hope you accept my offer, as I believe it would be a waste for someone of your talents to waste such potential. Though I do request that you give me an answer soon, as the registration deadline is coming to a close soon and the paperwork we need to go through will take time." Vigilante chuckled silently at the word paperwork as he remembered a few people who despised that word. He put the slip of paper in his pocket as he nodded to Nezu. "I'll give you my answer as soon as I come up with an answer. And since you are doing this for me," he lifted his hands to his head and began to remove the covering. The hood was removed to reveal bright blonde hair that spiked out. The mask was removed to show whisker marks and a smile. And the visor glasses were removed to show vibrant ocean blue eyes with slitted pupils. "My name is Naruto Uzumaki. And whether or not I accept your offer, Nezu, it was a pleasure to meet you." Nezu immediately noticed the change in voice and was surprised at how different he sounded now that the mask was off. He brought up his paw as he said, "And it was a pleasure meeting the boy behind the mask." Naruto took the paw and held it for a few seconds before he let go and took a few steps back before he put his face covering back on. He gave a two-fingered salute before he vanished from sight. Nezu looked around as he tried to see if he could catch any sign of his departure. But he could not see any of it. Remarkable speed indeed. He then walked towards the door that led inside the building. "If he does join, I feel he will change many things in UA. I wonder what they might be." Elsewhere. Naruto was leaping from rooftop to rooftop as he made his way home. He didn't want to think about the offer yet as he needed to stay alert while out in public. It was then that he caught the scent of smoke and looked in the direction his nose was telling him it was coming from. He saw a pillar of smoke not that far away and, figuring he could be of some help, changed his course and made his way to it. As he got closer, he saw Mount Lady was standing close by but facing the opposite direction of him. "Good, she won't see me as I get closer." He stopped a distance away to see what the problem was and how he could help, but he gritted his teeth as his acute eyes caught sight of a hostage situation. He was about to jump in and take the large slime villain down till his eyes widened at what happened next. Midoriya was terrified about the situation that was going on in front of him. He also felt extremely guilty at the thought that it was his fault that this villain had escaped and taken a hostage. "It's all my fault. If I hadn't distracted All Might with my questions, he would have taken the villain to jail by now." He stared at the slime villain as he held onto the hostage. While Midoriya was panicking, he heard several of the other onlookers asking questions to each other. "Why aren't the heroes doing anything? Beauty has a hostage. Isn't it the same villain that All Might took care of earlier? How did he escape?" "Don't worry, the heroes will take care of the villain soon." Midoriya clasped his hands over his mouth as he looked on. "They don't understand. None of the heroes here have the type of quirk that can take the villain down. And All Might not be able to help." His panic kept growing as he saw his friend Kachin being used as a shield. But then he saw it. Something that he didn't think he would see in Kachin's eyes. Fear. Midoriya began to run as fast as he could towards the villain. The heroes that were already there began to shout at the kid to stop or turn back, but their words fell on deaf ears. Midoriya felt his whole body shiver in fear, yet he kept running. "What am I doing? Why are my legs moving?" He thought about everything he had been told in his life. "The doctor's sorry, but you don't have a quirk. The teachers, it's best if you didn't apply to UA. Kachin, you think you can become a hero. In your dreams, Deku. You're better off dying and trying again in the next life. All Might, can you become a hero without a quirk? Sorry, but you can't. Mom, I'm sorry, Izuku. I wish things could have been different." Midoriya swallowed down his fear and thought about what he could do right now. Page 25. Right. Thinking of his idol, he forced a strained smile onto his face as he grabbed his backpack and spun around before tossing it at the villain's eyes. When dealing with a villain that might be stronger, aim for one of his senses to distract him. The contents of his bag flew all across the slime villain's face and one of the notebooks jabbed him in the eye, causing him to scream. Midoriya made it to where Bakugo was being held and began to grab at the slime to tear it off. The slime around Bakugo loosened and freed his face. He gasped for air as he looked to Midoriya. "What the hell are you doing, Deku?" Midoriya kept trying to pull the slime off his friend. "I don't know. My legs just moved on their own." "Get the hell out of here, you loser." "I can't." Bakugo was stunned a bit by the declaration from the weakling he knew. He looked to him and saw terror was gripping the green-haired boy, but still had the forced smile as he spoke with fearful tears in his eyes. "I can't just watch you die, Kachin." Ashinori was awestruck by what he heard the kid say. "What am I doing? I'm just standing here." While his muscles began to increase as he gripped his side. "I have to do something. No matter the cost. Or else I." The slime villain recovered from the hit to his eye and looked at the civilian trying to free his hostage. What a pathetic pest. He raised a large tendril of slime and brought it down to kill the boy. Midoriya looked up in shock as he saw it coming down on him and shut his eyes as he braced for the hit. The big gust of wind shot at the slime villain and suddenly Bakugo was released from the slime monster's hold. He fell right next to Midoriya and it looked like they were both about to be hit till another shockwave was felt by everyone. "I really am pathetic." Everyone looked to see that All Might had blocked the blow as he stood over the two kids protectively. All Might grabbed the two of them with his free hand and moved them behind him. "I told you what it takes to be a great champion. But I see that I wasn't living up to my own ideals." He tossed a piece of slime that impacted him aside before pulling his fist back. "You risked your life, kid. That's the true trait of a hero." The slime monster looked at the limb that he was using to slam the kids, only to see that it was cut off. Regrowing it, he brought it up for another swing. "Damn you, All Might." All Might tensed his muscles and activated his quirk as he sent the punch at the villain. Detroit Smash, he sent a punch so strong that it blew away the slim villain as well as the flames that took the whole center and created a small tornado. Mount Lady was covering the onlookers so that they wouldn't be blown away by the shockwave of the punch. Once the wind died down, everyone looked to see that the two kids were alright and the villain was splattered everywhere. Though being made of slime, he was alive. Another effect that the punch caused was the formation of clouds above the area, causing rain to fall. Everyone stood there in shock as Death Arm spoke in awe. "Holy crap. He changed the freaking weather." All Might stood up straight as he began to raise his arm in victory, but he had to rebalance himself as he felt his legs buckle a bit from the strain of overusing his quirk. The crowd cheered for the number one hero as he stood victorious once again. All Might looked down at the unconscious boys but focused on the one that risked his life to save another. He then looked at some slime that was splatter on the wall to his right. Someone helped the hostage out of the situation he was in. By the time I got to these kids, he was already on the ground. Not only that, but the arm that was going to hit them had already been cut off from the rest of the body. If I hadn't blocked it, it would have harmlessly flopped at an angle, completely missing them. I wonder. The police arrived and gathered all the sludge of the villain and were storing it into containers meant for such villains. All Might was standing in front of the reporters as they kept praising him for his heroics. Midoriya was being chewed out by several of the heroes there as they reprimanded him for risking his life and that it was pointless for him to have done that. As all this was going on, Naruto stood on top of a nearby rooftop watching all this go on. The guy risks his life to save someone and he gets punished for it. He sighed as he shook his head. Kid deserves praise, not complaints. He then shined away as he was no longer needed here. All Might paused in his answering as he looked up at an angle to the rooftop of a building. Was that just my imagination? Elsewhere. Naruto made it to where he was staying as he began to take off his disguise. This place is full of problems. Once his mask was off, he pulled out the piece of paper that had the number on it and thought about what he should do. Should I go? It would be something new to do while I stay here, but it's cool. He groaned as he didn't know if he should or not. What do you think? You're asking me if you should go to school. What the hell have you done to my kid? Naruto chuckled as he took off his shirt. Hey, I'm not that bad. If I recall, you skipped out at the academy so you could prank the whole market district. For most of the week. Okay, fine, so I was that bad. But who knows? This school might be different. I mean, this world is full of people that have so many different powers. He took off his shoes and pants as his body began to increase in size. I don't see a real point in going, but it would give you something to do besides running around and picking a fight with all the heroes. Naruto sighed as he dropped to all fours as his hair began to change color as well as fur growing from his body. He made it to a pile of pillows and laid on them as 8 swaying tails were seen behind him, with the centermost one having a black stripe that ran from the tip to his neck before splitting and ending at his eyes. I'll give him a call tomorrow morning. I can't believe I'm saying this, but I'm going to school. Yippee, what the hell. He chose to get some rest on his pillow bed that was set up in an abandoned warehouse. Despite it still being sunset. Meanwhile. Young man, you too can become a hero. Midoriya was on his knees clutching at his shirt as he heard the words that he had needed to hear for so long. Tears ran down his face as those 8 words rang through his head. The words I need to hear. I wanted to hear. Were finally said to me by the one I idolized the most. This is the story about how Izuku Midoriya became the world's greatest hero and the boy that paved his way to stand with him. End of chapter. Chapter 2. Meeting and reporting in. Boom. Naruto groaned as a large explosion was heard just outside the warehouse, causing the whole building to shake. He tilted his head back as he was laying on his back and looked at the clock he had a few feet away from his pillow pile. He groaned again as another explosion was heard and he saw the time say 5:20 a.m. Really? Do the bad guys have to start this early in the morning? Why can't they wait till people actually wake up at the normal time? He rolled to the side as he groggily got to his paws before he stretched them out as a cat would. He curled his fingers in and left a set of claw marks on the floor, joining many others. Once he was done with it, he began to shift his form back into his human form so he could get dressed in the black outfit that he wore yesterday. Gotta get another set of clothes soon. He sighed as he looked around at the upper level of the warehouse he used. It was merely a barren floor with a couple of empty crates scattered around. On top of a few of the crates were many used and chipped kunai and shuriken he had used in his battles. He always had to retrieve them as he wasn't sure if any of the heroes would be able to track him down if they got a hold of them. Though at this point they were unusable since the very metal looked like it would shatter if they hit anything. And I'm gonna need a new set of equipment soon. Now many would think that he would be miserable living in such a worn out area and having pitiful clothing and equipment. But Naruto didn't care for them. The equipment he had lasted a very long time since he didn't use them much since he had many other techniques that did the job better. His clothing was the same since he used his evasive skills to avoid many damaging attacks from the heroes and villains. The set he had now had lasted more than 6 months after being in so many battles. The other sets were destroyed, mostly burned because of Endeavor's hot temper. The one destroyed the most was turned to ash when they met in an open area with no one around. He rolled his shoulders before he began making his way to an open window on the other side of the warehouse. He leaped to the windowsill and looked at what was causing the explosions. His eyes widened as he saw that it was a demolition crew getting ready to take down the very building he was staying at. Damn, I thought I still had a week left. He jumped back inside and ran to his stuff. Why the hell do they have to move ahead of schedule? He moved to a crate, lifted the lid, reached in, and pulled out a few small scrolls. Don't even have time to pack up at my own pace. He summoned a few clones as they packed everything up. After everything was packed up, one of the clones handed a single scroll to him as the warehouse shook again. Time to head out. Dispelling the clones and putting the scroll in his pocket, he put on his face covering back on and ran towards the window. He jumped out of the window when a big explosion caused the building to collapse. He landed on a roof and looked at the collapsing building. Well, since I'm up, I might as well get some breakfast and wait till a decent hour. He glared at the construction crew who wanted to get a head start on the day. Before I make the call and make a report. He then leaped away to find a location that was open so he could acquire food. Later. No. Nezu smiled as he sat in his chair. I knew that you would respond in such a manner, Aizawa. Because it is an irresponsible decision. We already have a vast number of applicants, and the ones that were accepted due to recommendation are already set to take the exams. Normally if someone turned in an application this late, the document would already be tossed away. You can't just come in at the very last second and bring in one newcomer as well as saying he will be put into the hero course. You make it sound as if he will be accepted no matter how he does. Not to mention that his paperwork isn't even finished yet. Nezu nodded as he clasped his paws. I understand the regulations that have been set for this, but I see great potential in the boy and I do not want to see it wasted. Aizawa turned to him and asked. So why not have him apply for the next round of applicants? It's not like the school is going anywhere. No, but he might. I do not know the details of his circumstances, but I have concluded that he lives a very difficult life and is constantly on the move. Should we not obtain him now, we may lose him for good. Aizawa leaned back in his chair as he sighed. This was something that he wasn't expecting from Nezu. The super intelligent animal would usually be neutral about the students. Yeah, he cared about all of them and wanted to see them all become great heroes, but this was the first time he was adamant about a specific individual. Well, you are going to have to deal with all the paperwork for this one and hope that you can get the document submitted in time. Also, you said that he still needs to give you an answer. For all we know, he might just decline. Yes. There is a possibility that he will decline the offer, but I believe that he will give me the answer I hope for. Ring ring ring. The two looked at the phone that was sitting on the desk before Nezu picked it up and looked at the number. And there it is. He picked up the call and pressed the phone to his ear. Hello, Nezu speaking. Nezu, it's me. Nezu smiled when he heard the voice of the one he was waiting for. Aizawa sighed tiredly as he slumped in his chair and mumbled out. I hope he ends up in another class. Naruto was inside a small shop that sold food meant for lunches as he was using their phone to make the call. He had used a hinge to make himself look like an older man with brown shaggy hair, wearing blue jeans, a green shirt and white sneakers, but made sure to keep his voice the same so he would not confuse Nezu. Ah, it's good to hear from you so soon. Though I had expected you to call me later in the day. Naruto grunted as he withheld a yawn. My day started earlier than usual, so I chose to get this over with. Well, starting the day early allows more to be done. So have you made your decision? Naruto nodded despite knowing that Nezu couldn't see it. I accept your invitation, but there are some details that we need to go over. Preferably somewhere private. Are you free right now? I don't have anything that takes priority. So I am able to meet you at the moment. Alright. The building you met me at, can you meet me there? It will take me a bit of time to get there, but that is acceptable. Naruto smiled thanks. I'll see you there and let it just be you and me, bye. I will see you then. Naruto hung up the phone and made his way to the exit. As he walked past a register, he grabbed a packet of flavored bread that was waiting for him as he already paid for it. He opened it and took a bite as he thought to himself. I miss Ichiraku ramen. He made his way into an alley before he dropped the hinge, finished his breakfast, and disappeared. Nezu hung up his phone, hopped off his chair, and began to make his way out of the room. Where are you going? Nezu stopped at the door and looked at Izawa. I am going to meet with him right now. There are some matters that he wishes to discuss in private. I should return in 2 hours or so. Izawa looked at Nezu with a critical look in his eyes. You're going to go meet someone in a location that he designated. I should go with you since this sounds too fishy for my tastes. He got up to follow Nezu, but his friend's raised paw stopped him. I appreciate your concern, but I trust this boy and I do not believe he has any ill will towards me. Izawa gave a hard stare. I still don't like it. Nezu nodded. I know. But in order to keep his answer positive, I will meet with him alone. Do not worry about me. He turned around and left the room. Izawa stood there for a minute before he turned back to his desk and sat down. He would trust his friend's ability to take care of himself despite the shady situation this seemed to be. Nezu arrived at the building where he had met Naruto and looked up to the roof as if he expected to see him up there. Not seeing any sign of him, he chose to wait for his arrival. He didn't wait long since he felt a presence behind him. Is this a sort of payback for me appearing behind you yesterday? Behind Nezu came Naruto as he put his hands into his blue jean pockets. Kinda. Roles are kinda reversed this time. Nezu turned around and nodded. He looked at the boy and saw that he was wearing a simple orange shirt and blue jeans. So shall we get these matters cleared up? Naruto nodded as he began to walk in the direction of a nearby park with Nezu following. Well, do I need to sign any papers or something so I can apply for the school? He shivered at the word school since he never thought he would willingly go back to it. Nezu smirked at the shiver and figured that he was one of those who did not like the idea of school and wouldn't find much enjoyment in learning. He gained much respect for the boy for choosing to go to it when he didn't enjoy it. Yes, there are some applications that you need to sign and I do want to ask you a few things about you personally. Naruto looked down at Nezu with a questioning look. What do you need to know? I would like to understand why you are treading the line between hero and villain. It took Naruto a sec before he got what he meant. Looking around and seeing that they were entering the park but with a few people still around him, he whispered loud enough for Nezu to hear. You wanna know why I work as a vigilante instead of a hero? Nezu gave a hum of acknowledgement as they arrived at a bench that was in a part of the park that didn't get many people. The two sat down as Nezu brought up his suitcase, opening it and pulling out the documents that were needed. Since they were on a clipboard already, he handed it over to Naruto as he waited for Naruto to answer his question. Naruto looked over the document, reading what it asked before he signed his name. As he was signing he answered. To be honest, I started doing it because I was bored. Nezu was a little stunned by the answer. He had assumed that Naruto did it because he wanted to be a hero, but he was never given the opportunity. But it goes to show that assumptions will, most of the time, lead to incorrect conclusions. When I saw criminals running around the city, it was always followed by a hero showing up and taking them down fast. I didn't think I needed to do anything since the heroes were always doing their job. But I would on occasion stop a villain when I didn't have anything else to do. Now Nezu was intrigued. If someone with the mindset of not needing to do it often since someone else was on the job changes into someone who does hero work without permission frequently, then what was his motivation? But I soon saw something that bugged the hell out of me. He finished another document and went to the next and read it over. During a hero-villain chase, they ran through a crowded street and caused damage to the buildings as they went. Thing was that they didn't stop. Hero kept chasing the villain without looking behind him. A chunk of concrete fell on top of a kid that got away from his mom. The kid was lucky enough to not get seriously hurt or fully trapped. He could have gotten out by the hole that was left open since the chunk was leaning against the wall, but he was crying out for help, screaming for someone to get him out. And the majority of the people were chasing the fight so they could watch, while the ones that did hear the kid were unable to move the chunk of concrete. He paused in signing as he gripped a pen and clipboard tightly, but making sure not to break it. I couldn't believe that no one could help him, and I was reminded of another little kid I met years ago. Another kid who didn't believe in heroes. He said that anyone that tried to become a hero would just end up dead cause the bad guy would always win. His tension dropped as he remembered the moment he proved to Inari that heroes do exist in his world. I felt that if the kid remained under that rock longer, he might start to lose belief in heroes. I know what it's like to lose faith in something. So I chose to jump in and get the kid out of it. Pulling up the hoodie I had on, I jumped in and moved the large slab away. And when the kid noticed that he was free, he gave the biggest smile he could give at me and said thank you, hero. Nezu could see the happy smile the boy had and began to understand why he did what he did. I didn't stay long as I heard something else being destroyed in the direction of the fight. So I went to make sure that no one else was put in danger. Saved a couple more people till the fight ended. After that, I would occasionally do what a lot of heroes don't do, make sure the people aren't hurt. So why didn't you try to become a pro hero? Why become a vigilante? Every agency has put you at the top of their wanted list and the police have done all they can to find out who you are. Naruto finished the last piece of paperwork as he handed it back to Nezu. Because based on all records, I don't exist. He kept the real reason to himself as Nezu didn't need to know. Nezu looked over the files and noticed several things that caught his attention. No guardian, no address to his dwelling, and no level of education. He looked at Naruto as he came to his conclusion. On the streets at a very early age. He decided to file away this information for another time as he had something he needed to bring up. We can discuss more on that at a later date. Something I feel we need to be concise about is your affiliation with the moniker Vigilante. I feel we should keep it a secret that you were Vigilante. Naruto tilted his head back as he looked at the sky. He had a knowing smirk on his face as he thought about what Nezu just said. Were? Haha, sure we'll go with that for the moment. That's a given. If people found out that you let someone who was on the most wanted list into UA, you would be in so much trouble. Not to mention that the press would find some way to bash on the school. Those vultures will do anything to get ratings and stuff. Making someone who is well known look bad is something they would kill for. Nezu was a little surprised by how astute his deduction was. Yes, Nezu was taking a very big risk here. Should it fail, Nezu would lose all credibility in being a hero as well as an instructor. But many of the greatest rewards in life come with the greatest risks. Naruto got to his feet and stretched his arms over his head. Give me about a week to find a place to live and I'll fill it in when I have it set in. And don't think that just because I don't have the education that I won't be able to pass. He then looked at his clothing and thought about the costume allowance. And I have a way to get a costume before I start. Nezu began to put the documents away. I hope it is through legitimate methods. He smiled teasingly as Naruto began to walk away. Naruto twisting his torso to look at Nezu. Hey. His pupils narrowed even more. I'm not that bad. Anyway, I'll talk to you another time. I got stuff I gotta do. I would recommend you pull back from that role. You are trying to become a pro hero. Naruto smiled as he turned away from Nezu and waved his hand dismissively. Don't worry about that. It's not what I was going to do. He paused as he remembered something else that he needed to do about his application. I also need to fix that quirk registration. Your quirk could bring about questions about your affiliation with Vigilante if they see you using the same quirk as he does. Naruto smiled as he turned back to Nezu and gave a foxy grin. Don't worry about that. I have a way to avoid suspicion with my quirk, trust me. He waved at Nezu as he spun around and began to leave once again. Later, Nezu. Before Naruto could get far, Nezu called out. Wait. I would like to know one more thing. Naruto looked over his shoulder at Nezu. The boy you said didn't believe in heroes anymore. What happened afterward? Naruto gave a foxy grin with a thumbs up. I became his hero. He turned back as he thought back to his mission to wave an Inari and how the kid called him the hero of his home. Funny how I became a hero in a world that doesn't have many, while I end up in a world with a bunch of those who are called heroes. Nezu kept his gaze on Naruto for a minute before he hopped off the bench. He certainly is an interesting one. Let us see what you do as a student of UA. Later, elsewhere. Naruto wandered the city till he found another abandoned building to use. He looked up at the vacant office building that was going to be renovated on most of its levels. He figured that it would be the best place to do what he needed to do. Looking around, he saw that he was in the clear and snuck inside. Making sure that no one was inside, he made it to the 11th floor and saw that it was just concrete floors, pillars, some tarps, and buckets. He made his way inside as he knew he was about to get an earful. He went through a few hand signs and slammed his hand onto the ground. Summoning jutsu. A large puff of smoke appeared where he slammed his hands before it cleared to show a large 8-feet toad with orange skin and wearing a dark blue vest. Naruto smiled at the toad. Hey Gamakichi. Gamakichi looked down at Naruto before he growled and hit the boy on the head. Naruto, what the hell? It's been over 2 months since you last reported in, and the hag has been hounding us for any info on how you were doing. Naruto rubbed his head as he looked up at Gamakichi. I'm sorry that I haven't summoned you to give my report on my well-being, but nothing has changed during that time. But now I have a report to give Tsunade. He pulled out a scroll that had the details of what he was about to do in this world. Gamakichi eyed the scroll before he opened his mouth and took the scroll with his tongue. After he had made sure that the scroll was secured, he looked at Naruto expectantly. Naruto sighed as he pressed 2 fingers on his upper arm, where he had a storage seal placed, and unsealed its contents. A large bag filled to the brim with candy. He mumbled to himself as he lifted the bag. I pay with candy for important reports to be delivered. Gamakichi grabbed the bag and smiled as he had been waiting for this since the last time he was summoned. Should I tell anyone in Konoha anything before they unseal the storage scroll? Naruto thought about it for a second before shaking his head. There isn't anything in there that would shock them. I already know that Tsunade was pissed off at not being told to unseal it outside. Gamakichi nodded as he slung the bag over his shoulder. Well, make sure to summon me sooner. Konoha has been boring without you. Naruto nodded and waved to the large toad. I'll be sure to do that. Oh, and tell Kiba that if I hear about Akamaru digging up my garden again, I will send a shadow clone to kick his ass. Gamakichi chuckled at the memory of the last time Naruto sent a clone to punish the dog boy. Akamaru was not fast enough to get away, and both boy and dog were in the hospital for a week. Naruto smiled as he waved bye to the toad again and saw him disappear in a puff of smoke. He then began to head out of the building as he thought about what he needed to do. Guess it's time I finally get myself a place to actually call home, well, one that isn't condemned and rent-free. Let's see. He then began to think about what he wanted. If I can find a house, it's gotta have a large garden space, a large master bedroom for my pillow pile, and a guest room for storing my stuff. He then thought about if he would be able to find something like that in the city. Well, better start searching. He found an alley to change into his vigilante attire before he began to scour the city for what he was looking for. Wonder how everyone back in Konoha will react to you going to school. Konoha. MIT. Shizune. The scream from Konoha's well-respected Hokage was heard by every villager in the Konoha. Shizune tiredly walked into the office as she put several of the items she was looking at under her arm. What is it, Lady Tsunade? Shizune could see the furious glare her mentor had, but knew that it wasn't directed at her, it was directed at the now broken item on the desk. Lady Tsunade, this is the 4th one this month. You need to be more gentle with it. Tsunade flared as she looked at the item. I'll be gentle with it when I get the stupid thing to work faster. She wanted to destroy it completely, but she knew that if she did, all the important documents on it would be lost. She found that out the hard way the first time around. Shizune sighed again before she grabbed an item from under her arm and placed it on the desk. Please try and make this laptop last longer. The item that Tsunade destroyed was a laptop that a research department had recreated over the last couple of years. Tsunade had enjoyed the device as it helped manage many aspects of the Hokage job. However, there were times when she thought it to be agonizingly slow. Sometimes so slow that her temper was tested and oftentimes broken. Tsunade took a deep breath as she leaned back in her chair before swiveling it to look out the window. The village has changed in the 2 years Naruto had ended up in that other world. At first, no one noticed that he had disappeared from the village, not because they didn't care, but because it wasn't the first time they couldn't find the blonde when he was doing something on his own. It was the daughter of Anko Midoriya. Asa, that first realized that he wasn't in the village. She had said, quote, "Woofy hasn't come to play with me in a long time." This brought up red flags to every one of the rookies, since they all knew that Naruto would drop everything to play with a little girl, especially since he promised to always play with her at least every other day. And just when they were about to send out a search party to find the boy, a toad appeared in the Hokage office with a letter saying that he was in a place called Japan. After a bunch of back and forth letter messaging, Naruto had told them that he was going to stay in the world for the time being. Tsunade was of course furious about this and had ordered Jiraiya to reverse summon the boy back into the village, but the perverted sage had thought about this for a minute. Jiraiya had said that it might be beneficial if Naruto stayed there for a while. This got him punched in the face hard by his teammate, but he had quickly defended himself by saying that while he was in that world, the Akatsuki couldn't get to him. This still didn't deter Tsunade from wanting to bring him back, but Jiraiya once again said that since they could bring him back at any time, they could deal with a group of rogue shinobi first and then bring him back. After arguing about it for a good while, it was Hiruzen that came in and brought up the idea of asking Naruto himself about this plan. Naruto didn't see a problem with this since he could basically come back whenever. And, throughout the several days this was discussed with each other, he discovered the world he was now in was far more advanced technologically than Konoha was. So he began to obtain some items he thought would help Tsunade. Tsunade's R&D department had a field day with many of the items that were sent over. Cell phones, tablets, headphones, laptops, flat-screen TVs, game consoles, appliances, movies, and games. He even got his hands on schematics for security systems, factories, and designs of many different devices. It wasn't surprising since he had the stealth that surpassed even infiltration units. He even sent in a car for the department. That was a very bad day for Tsunade, who unsealed it in her office. She wanted to kill the blonde, but he wasn't there for her to murder. Naruto swore to always put a note on the seal, saying if it should be unsealed outside. The letter he got back may have been on paper, but he could feel the anger in the words. Since they were not the ones that created the things, they chose not to change the names. Interestingly, they chose not to recreate the cars since after testing it out, they discovered fairly quickly how poor it made air quality, and in the long run, it would be bad for a village in the middle of the forest. Though they did use it for concepts on mobile transportation on smaller scales. Besides, the shinobi could make it to their destination on the rooftops, and the civilians were content with just walking to where they needed to be in the village. It was the next report from Naruto that showed them that it was already done with smaller personal vehicles, such as skateboards or electric scooters. The department was really interested in the drones that were sent, as they found it intriguing to have a small flying object used for observing in high places or deliveries. All in all, the village has advanced leaps and bounds thanks to this little mishap, and Naruto would on occasion send in new things when they came out in Japan for Konoha to mass produce for the villagers. If advancements are already being made by the world Naruto was in and he brought in the new product, they reap the benefits of their hard work. Hey, Japanese companies can't sue since there was no legal system that could cross worlds. Tsunade was brought out of her thoughts when a large puff of smoke appeared in the middle of her office. She immediately knew who it was when she caught the rust color of the large toad. "About damn time," the Gaki reported back. "How is he?" Amakichi opened his mouth and unrolled his tongue to reveal a scroll that Tsunade took. Once the scroll was delivered, he spoke. He looked fine as usual. He didn't tell me much about what was going on this time, but knowing him, he is still causing trouble for those heroes that parade around the streets. Tsunade sighed as she thought about the world that Naruto was in. Ending up in a world of comic books. She shook her head as another thought came to mind. I'm surprised he hasn't started wearing a cape and posing. It does seem like the kind of thing he would do if he was extremely bored. Though his vigilante thing falls into that category. She looked to Shizune and spoke, "Send a message to everyone and tell them to meet at the Uzumaki compound if they aren't already there." Shizune reached into her kimono and pulled out a cell phone before she began to create a message for the rookies and some other specific individuals. She wasn't really fast in texting, but she was okay with it. After a minute she nodded to Tsunade and they left the office and began making their way to the compound that Naruto had built himself before he ended up in Japan. Sakura was panting as she rested her hands on her knees as she had just finished another training session with her boyfriend. Once she caught her breath, she straightened herself before wincing and looking at her arm. "I still can't avoid all of them. But only getting 10 or so on my arm does tell me that I am getting better." She began to pluck out the senbon from her arm before dropping them to the ground, causing them to shatter. She looked around her before her eyes landed on him. "So, should we call it a day and go see that movie Naruto sent back last time we heard from him? We weren't able to watch any of them because of missions and our responsibilities." Sakura's boyfriend took a step forward and out of the ice mirror. He reached up to grab his Usagi Anbu mask and smiled. "That sounds wonderful, Sakura. I'm also free for the next few days so we can spend them any way you want." Sakura gave a wistful smile as she shook her head. "Haku, tomorrow we are going to do the things you like. We already did everything I enjoyed doing and a few things on my bucket list. It's your turn." Haku had swapped his usual attire for an Anbu uniform as he had risen in rank quickly thanks to his training in Kekkei Genkai. His mask was that of a rabbit as he had requested it. One thing that was not standard for Anbu was a necklace that he wore around his neck that had a pink sakura petal that was reinforced with seals. Sakura was wearing clothing that resembled what Haku used to wear. Though it was slimmed down, sleeveless, and ending at her hips. And instead of the baggy pants, Sakura wore a gray skirt with biker shorts underneath. The main color of her outfit was red with pink highlights, with a few accents being white. She let her hair grow out again, but she now had it tied in a low ponytail. Her accessory was a necklace of a snowflake, also reinforced with seals. "Meinaka no, Utaga Sekenda, Boku Hantu wa ano Hai Karazudo." The two paused and looked to where they left some of their things to see that Sakura's cell phone was telling her she had a notification. Sakura sighed as she made her way to their things. When you start to plan things, someone somewhere wants to get in the way. She picked up her phone and went to her notifications. Haku followed her as he sympathetically patted her shoulder. "I'm sure that they aren't doing it on purpose." "Oh, I'm sure he is." She turned around to look up at Haku with a smirk on her face. The knucklehead finally reported back and Lady Tsunade wants us to gather at the compound so we can all hear what he has to say this time around. Aku smiled at the mention of Naruto. It has been a while since we heard from him. Sakura nodded as she picked up a small pack and slung it around her shoulder and put her phone in it. Well, let's head home. We can get cleaned up before everyone arrives. Aku nodded as he picked up a secondary weapons pouch and attached it to his belt. The two then shunshined away to get home. Neji was leaning against a wall, reading a book that he had gotten interested in. Next to him was Tenten as she twirled a kunai on her finger. So what was the plan for the day? We were supposed to head to the missions office to see if there is a mission we can take. He turned the page as he spoke to his teammate. Tenten tossed her kunai into the air and looked at him. So why aren't we doing that? You're a jonin and you could take a mission on your own, you know. Neji sighed as he knew he could but. Guy-sensei asked for my presence for this training session, so I chose to oblige him. Tenten rolled her eyes as she reached her hand out to the side and caught the kunai she threw. More like Guy-sensei dragged you here, saying you were lacking. She gulped as she forced herself to finish her sentence. Youth. She shuddered as she said the word that she had gotten tired of years ago. Neji continued to read his book as he sweat-dropped at her correct assumption. I hold the right to my silence. He then heard some rumbling and sighed as he put his book away. He then pushed off the wall ready. Tenten nodded as she put away the kunai and pulled out something else. The two watched as a large dust cloud made its way in their direction. Neji activated his Byakugan and focused as hard as he could while Tenten raised the item in the air. Once the dust cloud made it to them, Tenten dropped her arm as Neji followed what was making the dust cloud. Neji deactivated his Dojutsu as he sighed. Once again, Guy-sensei came in first, but Lee was closer this time. From the cloud came the two green-clad shinobi, Lee and Might Guy. Guy stood proudly as he patted Lee on the shoulder. Your youth shines brightly once again, Lee. One day your youth will shine so brightly that even our friend in the other world will see it. Lee had crocodile tears fall as he looked out to the horizon. Yes. I will shine so bright that my friend Naruto will know we still think of him. Tenten walked up to them and bonked them both on the head. She showed the item in her hand to be a stopwatch with a recorded time. You guys also beat your last record. But speaking of Naruto, we got a message saying that he finally sent in a report for all of us, so we should head back to the compound so we can see what the knucklehead is up to. I brought a fist as he shouted out. Yes. Let's go everyone and see how our friend's youth has changed the world of heroes. At that he ran off towards the compound with Lee not that far behind. Neji rubbed his temples as he asked Tenten. Any word on the improvements? Said girl sighed as she shook her head. They are still trying to find a way for it to handle the amount of speed we shinobi go at. And they need to reinforce it to handle the amount of force Guy and Lee give off. Neji nodded in understanding. Sending us a treadmill for exercise was a good idea. If only those two didn't destroy every version the research department tried to make. Tsume and Hana were walking through the Uzumaki compound towards their son's room. They both allowed him to move into the compound years ago as they knew that it was to be part of what he considered his pack, also known as the Rookies. Thing was that ever since Naruto sent a few of the entertainment devices to their world, Kiba had taken a liking to one of them. Sure, he still trained and went off on missions, but he found another way to pass the time. They made it to his door and already heard him. Damn it. Come on, come on. Woof. I know, Akamaru. But the bastard won't let up. Tsume used her foot to gently open the sliding door and glare at her son, who was playing a video game on the TV he had. She knew that when Kiba played his games, it would almost be impossible to get his attention. But as his mother, she knew just what to do. Hana whistled Akamaru over, which the large white dog obliged and began to lead him over to the compound courtyard along with her own Ninken partners. And Tsume's partner chose to follow them as he knew Tsume could handle this. Kiba was shifting the controller all around him in conjunction with his character's movement. Finally. All I need to do is kill this last guy and then. His excitement died when 5 kunai went through the screen of his TV, destroying it. No. He spun around glaring at who had done it, but his glare dropped as he saw his mother standing there. But he was still agitated. Mom. What the hell? Tsume glared at her son as she pointed at the phone that was on the ground next to Kiba. You've gotten a notice telling you that we finally got a message from Naruto, and here you are wasting time playing that thing. Kiba looked at his phone to see it flashing, picked it up, and saw that he had gotten a message. Damn, I didn't hear it. He looked back to his TV and felt his annoyance grow, but before he could say anything to his mother, she had grabbed his ear and started pulling him out of the room. Arg. What the hell, Mom? Let go. Not a chance. Everyone is gathering under the sakura tree to see what the pup has to say this time. Kiba unwillingly followed his mother as he thought to himself. How many missions am I going to have to do to buy a new one? Ino was walking through the streets of Konoha with a big smile on her face as she had been enjoying her date and her partner seemed to be just as happy with it. Though, her mood was interrupted when she heard her phone go off, telling her that she got a message from Shizune. Knowing that when she got a message from Shizune, it is most likely from Tsunade and it could be important. Pulling it out, her grumpy look turned into a smile as she saw what it said. About time we hear from him again. Though I wish he chose another time to do it. She looked to her partner well ready. Hinata put her phone away before looking at Ino and nodded. It would be nice to see what he has been up to and I am glad to hear that he is still safe. Ino rolled her eyes as she thought about Naruto and the word safe. Oh, I'm sure the idiot got himself in some sort of trouble. Ino, be nice. Ino smiled as she saw her girlfriend give her a cute put. I'll be nice when he sends me the key to the room that held onto all the random clothes he bought for his pranks. I know he has some dresses in there that he hadn't used on someone and I know there are a bunch of them that you would look cute in. She gave a teasing smirk before kissing Hinata on the cheek, causing the Hyuga girl to blush. Ino and Hinata are childhood friends with Naruto and were his support when he had many issues to deal with back in the village. As they became genin, Ino and Hinata started to realize that despite how they were friends, the two girls felt more attached to each other. It was Naruto that pushed them to get together with the simple act of grabbing their heads and forcing them to kiss each other. They both melted into each other before they broke apart. Despite gaining confidence when training with Naruto, she still felt too timid to say anything to Ino, especially since this was something that was frowned upon, as well as being the clan heiress. Ino had similar reservations since she was also the heiress to a well-known clan and she knew her father would have a heart attack if he found out. Naruto, not being one to care much about Konoha's residents' negative opinions, forced the two to confess and told them. If one of you were to die without ever seeing where this could go, then you will be hurting the other in ways you could not imagine. Do you want to do that to the one you care about the most? Ino called him the bluntest cupid ever. The two knew that they needed to head to the compound and had to cut their date short before they started making their way back. Shikamaru was woken up by his friend shaking him a bit. Turning his head he looked at Choji and asked what's up. Choji brought up his phone with his free hand since the other had a bag of chips in it. We got a message from Shizune. She says we're all supposed to head back to the compound. Shikamaru turned his head back and closed his eyes. Why? He was about to get a bit more rest till he heard Choji's next words. Naruto sent in another report. Shikamaru sighed as he got to his feet. Damn troublesome blondes. He knew that when Naruto sends in a report, Tsunade demands everyone to be present. She didn't need to since Naruto was a friend. He began to walk towards the compound with Choji following. Uzumaki compound. The first to arrive was Team Guy as Guy and Lee had been rushing at the fastest pace they could. Niji and Tenten just did their best to keep up. They began making their way to where the Sakura tree was as it was where the group usually held their meetings. I shouldn't be surprised that you guys got here so fast. The team looked to the side to see Anko walking towards them with her 6-year-old adoptive daughter. Asa Midoriya. With them was Hanabi Hyuga and Teiya. Asa was a little girl who was kidnapped by bandits that had raided her home and taken her family hostage along with many others. She was rescued by Anko and Naruto as they were sent out to handle the bandits. Unfortunately, they were not fast enough to save her family, so she was left an orphan. The shinobi found out that the village that she came from was destroyed by the bandits, so they chose to take her back to Konoha. Being Asa's savers, she became attached to the two and Anko chose to take her in. It wasn't long after that Asa began to see Anko as a mother figure and had asked if Anko could be her mother. Anko immediately agreed as she had also grown attached to her. Naruto became the older brother that she never had and he spoiled her every chance he got. He even made her a 6-tailed fox plushie which she slept with every time she missed him. That plushie was where he put his vanity. Hanabi became Asa's best friend after they met each other and Asa grew attached to the little Hyuga girl, calling her Dolly since Hanabi looked like a doll. Teiya was a prisoner of the fake retrieval mission. She had her chakra sealed and curse mark restrained so she could do nothing to retaliate. She now lived in the village as a civilian under constant watch to make sure she didn't do anything and spent her time as a music performer at the park which gained her the adoration of the children. Tenten smiled at the group and asked another play date at the park. Anko smiled as she picked her daughter up. I had the day off so why not? But when we got the message that the Gaki finally sent back a message, Asa couldn't drag us back faster. Teiya huffed as she crossed her arms. I don't even know why I'm here. I never even met the kid. She turned to look at Asa who was on Anko's shoulders and started to lose her bravado when the little girl gave her a sad teary look. She slumped as she just began to walk towards the meeting place. She had a soft spot for kids and Asa was growing to be her favorite. Also, she knew Anko would murder her if she made Asa cry. Anko looked up and smiled at the happy look Asa had. She hated it when Asa cried. As they went further into the compound they were stopped by the harsh opening of the door right next to them. Standing at the doorframe was a frazzled-looking Karen as she chose to drop her seal analysis to join everyone else. She slid the door harshly and walked past everyone and went in the direction they were heading. No one said anything since they knew that when Karen got like this, it meant that she had spent a lot of time in the seals testing room. Karen gained income selling the seals that were made in the seals testing room, but a majority of the best seals were ones that Naruto made, and she was given permission to mass produce them to sell in shops. But Karen, not wanting to be outdone by a younger Uzumaki, made it her goal to at least make a seal that was better than what Naruto has. So far she has had no success. Especially with the ones that can be used for dust removal and storage. She was close but still just falling short. The group then made their way to the meeting area with Team Guy, surprised to see that Kiba, Tsume, Hana and their Ninken partners were already there. Kiba was rubbing his ear as he saw the group arrive. "Hey, guys. You get the message too?" Tenten rolled her eyes. "We all got the message. Everyone else should be arriving here soon. How can Tamari stand you, Kiba?" Tsume and Hana chuckled with the canines barking and laughter. Tsume looked at Tenten and said, "I asked myself the same thing. Hey. Looks like this meeting is already going to be troublesome." The group looked over to see the rest of the rookies arriving as well as their senseis. I looked at Kakashi with a smile on his face. "Kakashi, my youthful rival. It is good to see that your flames of youth when hearing from your student burns the brightest they have ever been." In typical Kakashi fashion, he looked up from his book and asked, "Huh? Did you say something, Guy?" I fell to his knees as he cried crocodile tears. "Curse you and your hip attitude, Kakashi." It was then that the Hokage and Shizune arrived with a couple of extras. Jiraiya was wincing in pain as Tsunade had been pulling him by the ear from the hot springs to the compound which was halfway across the village. Standing by Shizune's side was Hiruzen Sarutobi, the retired third Hokage. By his side was Konohamaru as he had been the one to tell Hiruzen about the meeting since he ran into Tsunade on the road and ran off to get his grandfather. Behind them were Am and Iruka. Iruka had gotten the message and immediately put away all the papers he was looking over and ran off to be at the meeting place. He was not going to miss out on hearing from his old student. Am was close to not being able to make it since it was the middle of the lunch run and the stand had a bunch of customers. But Tucci had told her that he can handle it since he knew that Am wanted to hear from Naruto. Tucci told her that he wanted to hear every detail about what Naruto had been up to and that he would be sending a bowl of ramen for the next time they send Naruto supplies. Tsunade looked around at the group to make sure that no one was missing. But just to make sure she asked, "Is everyone here?" Joji looked around before he pointed out. "Wait, we're missing Shino." Hinata and Kiba sweat dropped upon hearing this with the Hyuga girl raising a hand actually she then pointed to the Sakura tree. "He was already here when we arrived." From behind the tree came Shino with a depressing aura over him. "I had been here the whole time." Everyone sweat dropped at the depressed Abiram while most of them thought. "We didn't even know he was there." The group all gathered under the Sakura tree as Tsunade brought out the scroll. "Alright, let's see what kind of trouble Naruto has gotten into now." Kiba petted Akamaru as he spoke up. "Hope he sends in something new. That place has a bunch of cool stuff." Karen adjusted her glasses as she glared at the Inuzuka. "More like you want him to send in some new game that you will play late in the night. You seriously have to pull back in how much you play." Kiba growled as he laid on the ground. "I get that enough from mom. I don't need you to tell me the same thing. Would you rather I tell Tamari about you overplaying?" Kiba shot up and shouted at the female, "Don't you dare." She glared back then stopped playing so damn late. As those two were arguing, Ino looked at Sakura who was sitting next to her and stated, "It's too bad Sasu couldn't be here to hear from Naruto." Sakura rolled her eyes. "It's his own fault for taking the long-term mission to spy on Orochimaru. Heck, when he finally finishes his mission and comes back, he will most likely be shocked by all the stuff that happened here." Aku nodded in agreement with his girlfriend. "It would be shocking to see your home change so much in such a short amount of time." I still recall Zabuza's shock when he saw several of the new devices in Konoha. Ino giggled as she had a thought. "I think it would be funny if he was so shocked he fainted." Hinata taped Ino's shoulder. "Be nice, Ino. He is working hard for the village." "Yeah, but he is missing out on all this cool stuff. And Naruto is in the middle of it all." Am looked to Shino who had cheered up well for an Abiram. "So have you heard back from Fu?" Shino nodded as he looked at Am. "The last I heard of her, she said that she was exploring the smaller villages in the Land of Fire. She said she will be heading our way within the month so we can meet again." "Enough." Everyone stiffened and sat back down when Tsunade shouted at them. Tsunade sighed as she unrolled the scroll and began to give a summary of the report as repeating the whole thing would be tedious. "Looks like there are a few new heroes that showed up. One of the most noticeable is some woman called Mount Lady who can enlarge herself, much like the Akimichi's expansion jutsu. Toji was interested in this since he didn't think that one of those quirks could replicate some of their clan jutsu. Wow, I didn't think there would be ones that could copy our jutsu. That world is crazy. Shikamaru sighed. Sounds far more troublesome than ours. Tsunade continued. It also looks like he will be finding a place for himself instead of finding random buildings to sleep in. Tenten nodded as she crossed her arms. About time. I get that we are shinobi and we were trained to handle tough times, but not once has he found himself a place. Fox or not, that's pushing it. Ino waved her hand dismissively, he just prefers to sleep in open spaces while in his fox form, so crashing in random places doesn't seem out of character for him. He is the most adaptable out of all of us. Tsunade kept reading and summarizing the scroll. That hothead Endeavor still wants to roast him into ash, so no change there. Looks like it is the same thing after all this time. Though he did say that he needs new equipment and a new outfit sometime in the next couple weeks. She kept going through the miscellaneous stuff till she reached the last part and quirked an eyebrow as there was a storage seal before the last section. Seeing that there was no note saying that she should get some space, she unsealed its contents. She smiled as she saw that it was Sake from the world he was in. Thought her smile died when she realized that this was a bribe. Gaki must be about to tell me that he did something really stupid. Jiraiya chuckled as he thought about what his student could be about to do if he sent Sake to Tsunade. It can't be that bad. Kakashi nodded as he looked up. Nothing he could do would cause him to send a peace offering to Tsunade. The entire group nodded in agreement to that as they all knew that Naruto had no fear when it came to authority figures. Not even the Hokage. Despite being a shinobi of Konoha, Naruto had no real obligation in protecting the village as he had very little care for the villagers that had shunned or hurt him. It's one of the reasons why he is staying in that world. Sure, it was a good way to avoid facing the Akatsuki, but Naruto just thought that this was a vacation from the village. He did keep in touch with them, but only with the people he cared about. And in his eyes, he doesn't see Tsunade as his Hokage, he sees her as a pseudo-mother figure. And the group sitting under that sakura tree understood that. Especially since it was the villagers' fault he was a bijuu in the first place. Tsunade put the bottle down and chose to read the next part out loud so everyone could hear it. So, you may be wondering why I sent you a bottle of sake. Well, it's because something was offered to me. Something I think might give you such a shock. Now everyone was interested as this was the first time they heard that Naruto was offered anything since he made sure that no one could catch him. I was offered a place in a well-known facility and after thinking about it for a night, I decided to accept it. So in about a month's time, I will be attending the most famous school. UA Academy as one of its students. Naruto is willingly going to school. Many of them started to begin shouting out their disbelief and thinking that the end was near. Iruka fainted from shock. Jiraiya was trying to dispel the genjutsu he thought he was in. Kakashi grabbed the scroll and used his Sharingan to see if there was a genjutsu on it or if it was really written by Naruto. Tsunade rubbed her temples because of the shouting that was happening around her. She now knew what the bottle of sake was for. She grabbed it and chugged down the contents. It was meant for the headache she was getting. End of chapter. Chapter 3. A familiar scenario. Let me go, you wannabe hero. Naruto was in his vigilante persona again as he tied up another crook that had stolen a convertible car and went for a joyride. I's quirk was shape-shifting fingers. He could change his fingers into the shape of any kind of object, but it couldn't change the size. He turned his finger into the key for the car and went speeding through the streets, not caring about the people crossing the road. Naruto had dropped into the passenger seat before he slammed his foot on the brakes and grabbed the wheel so he could manipulate its movement to avoid the pedestrians. No one was hurt and the only thing damaged was the car as it bumped into a pole. Naruto brushed off some metaphorical dust on his hands. Well, that makes 7 small-time robberies, a burning building, some crazy super-strength quirk villain, and a small kitty in a tree. Still a lot better than that damn Tora. The one cat I felt like I should eat but would most likely get sick from the evil that cat had. Aw, I didn't know you love kitty witties. Naruto suddenly fell to his hands and knees as he busted out laughing. He was rolling on the ground laughing till he opened his eye to see Imi Fukakato, aka Ms. Joke. Ha 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 ha. Miss ha 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 joke. PFFT ha 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 ha, it's been ha 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 a while. Wah ha 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 ha. Miss Joke walked up to the laughing vigilante with a smile on her face. That it has. I see you are doing great. Ha 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 ha, can't complain. PFFT, ha 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 ha. Joke smirked as she pulled out a stick of gum and popped it into her mouth before she pulled out some quirk suppressant cuffs. Well, we can catch up later at the station. She moved closer to Vigilante at a fast pace since the last time they met. Naruto flipped onto his feet and jumped away from her and onto the other side of the street. He still chuckled a bit but he was able to hold it back. As much as I would love to catch up with you, but I don't think we will have as many laughs in jail. He was about to make his escape, but he had to jump away from his spot as a scarf looped in the spot he was just at. Landing on top of a lamppost, he smiled brightly under his mask as he saw Eraserhead. "Aw, the married couple plan on taking me in together." Aizawa glared at the criminal as this was not the first time that he joked about that. The problem was. "See Eraserhead. Even he says we should get married. So come on, marry me. Why is it that I can never get any peace when I'm out here?" He kept his glare on the Vigilante as he needed to find the opportune time to erase Vigilante's quirk. He could do it now since the quirk wasn't activated, but with the position they were in, it wouldn't matter if the criminal can still get away from his own strength. He needs to get closer. Naruto already could tell what Eraserhead was thinking as this was a strategy the man used several times. He stood up from his spot on top of the post and smirked mischievously. He knew that the man would be pissed if he used the quirk the world knew him to have. So he will piss the man off, for fun. He spread his arms slightly so they were at a downward angle. "So, Eraserhead, shall we once again see who is better at this?" Everything in his head was screaming at him to shut down the crook's quirk before he had a chance, but if he did, he wouldn't have the chance to apprehend him. Shit. Naruto could feel the weariness coming from both of the heroes and let his power loose. Clink clink clink. Naruto eyed the two and knew that out of the two of them, he would have some trouble with Miss Joke. Let's have some fun. He swung his right arm forward as the golden chain that came out of his hand flew towards the two. Both heroes jumped away to avoid the pointed end of the chain, but Miss Joke had to keep moving as the chain bounced off the sidewalk and flew after her. Naruto kept his gaze on Miss Joke as he focused on keeping the chain moving forward as if it was bouncing off the surfaces. He felt Aizawa's anger aimed at him and could tell the man was running up behind him. He looked over his shoulder to see Eraserhead jumping in the air behind him with his eyes flashing red. Miss Joke stopped jumping around and landed on the roof of a car as she saw the chain drop to the ground lifeless. Naruto smiled as he leaned to the right as the scarf flew at him. He let his body fall to the side as he spun on the bar of the light post before he flipped in the air and landed on the ground. Once he landed he swung his left arm to have the second chain that was already out of his hand to wrap around the scarf. Flicking his wrist, the chain tightened around the scarf and then he pulled back hard, pulling the scarf and Eraserhead towards him. Seeing the man correct himself in the air and ready to land behind him, Naruto jumped upwards and intercepted him before landing a hard kick to the man's head. Landing back on the ground with Aizawa crashing away from him, he flicked his wrist again before he ran towards Miss Joke as he bent down and picked up his right hand's chain with the same hand and spun on his feet to use the momentum to throw the chain at Miss Joke as he knew Eraserhead got up and had his gaze on him. Miss Joke dodged the chain and was about to say something to activate her quirk, but she was wrapped around by the second chain that he was dragging behind him, with some of it wrapping around her throat. Damn it. She tried to think of a way to get out of this, but was then spun around and thrown into Aizawa who was charging at Vigilante. Aizawa caught Miss Joke and held her in his arms for a second as he looked up at Vigilante. Naruto wanted to take a picture, but he couldn't bring his phone out lest it be recognized. He paused as he heard the police sirens coming closer. He shifted his gaze to Eraserhead and saw through the goggles that the man was straining to keep his eyes open. Smirking, he flicked his wrist to get the chain to come back towards him and caught it. He then reached into his coat and grabbed a specific smoke bomb and tossed it towards the man. Better luck next time. Eraserhead, Mrs. Joke. Have fun on the honeymoon. He saw the smoke bomb go off before he made his chains disappear and he made his getaway. Aizawa shut his eyelids as the smoke stung his eyes. Damn it. He got away again. He walked forward out of the smoke so he could open his eyes. He then looked down at Joke and was about to ask why she hasn't said anything till he saw her blushing and cupping her face. He grew a tick mark as he heard her. He called me Mrs. We are an official couple now. She wrapped her arms around Aizawa's neck with a bright smile on her face. Aizawa's eye twitched as he was so tempted to just drop her. I hate that man. Even as he thought this, something bugged him about the criminal. Was he taller? Naruto landed on the roof of a random building and took a deep breath. Man, Miss Joke is the only hero that has really hurt me. And that was from laughing too hard. Ugh, I almost hate her quirk. He stretched his arms before he figured that he was done for the day and chose to make his way to his new home. It had been a month since his meeting with Nezu and during that time, he had been able to forge some documents that gave him a background, a guardian, and an education. Slipping the documents in wasn't really that hard. The building had good security, but nothing that he couldn't handle. The toughest part was forging the documents. He had to look up a school that he attended, graduation papers, previous residence, a death certificate for his mother, documents for his father, and current residence and work. Fortunately, he was able to get most of that and with a little help from Pervy Sage, he made a job for his father. Naruto just knew that the man's overinflated head was getting bigger now that his books were being read in another dimension. Though, Naruto used this as an opportunity to get a book that he himself wrote out in the world. Instead of smut like his old teacher wrote, it was an adventure fantasy book. As for the house it was a good 2-floor house that he was able to buy with some gambling money he won in several casinos that hate his guts. Or at least, the brown-haired man that had a scar on his nose. Naruto landed in an alley and made sure there was no one around as he undid his hinge and took off his costume. Once he was in his normal clothes, he walked towards his home and entered his house before he paused at the sight of Nezu sitting at his table with a cup of tea. "Ah, it is good to see you. And I must say that your house is quite lovely." Naruto stared at the animal person for a second before he looked back to his door and asked, "How did you get in here?" He looked back at Nezu to see him hold up a key and a big smile on his face. "I used a spare key that you have under the stone toad you have at the side of the house." He put the key on the table as he gestured for the chair adjacent to him. "I wish to speak with you about some important matters." Naruto shrugged as he moved over to the chair and served himself a cup of tea. "So, what did you want to talk to me about? Is it about the documents that are now on file?" Nezu took a sip of tea before he spoke. "There is one thing that I would like to speak about from what I was able to read, but that can wait. What I really wish to speak about is the special conditions that you will have to go through in order for you to attend UA." Naruto nodded as he put his cup down and listened to Nezu. "Being principal of the school gives me some leeway on how things are done, but I have received some grievances with allowing you to attend the school when your application was turned in at a very late date. As such, I have been able to convince them that if you were able to achieve a specified challenge during the entrance exam, they will accept it." Naruto figured that it was only fair since he learned that many of the ones that applied to the school turned in their application weeks if not months before he did. If the teachers wanted to see if he was worthy of being in this school, then why not? And this could be fun if the challenge was hard. What did they want me to do? In order for you to prepare, you will be privileged about what the entrance exam entails. The first part of the exam will be a written test about the general history of our hero society as well as the laws that are out there. For this part, you are required to have at least 80% on the test. I will send you a list of things that will help you on this." Seeing the boy nod, he continued. "The next part will be a practical exam to test out how well you are able to use your quirk. There will be robotic enemies that you will be faced with 4 different types that have a set amount of points. For normal students, they need to gain about 60 points in order to pass, but for you, you are required to gain at minimum 70 villain points and 30 rescue points. Villain points are gained when you defeat the robotic enemies, while rescue points are gained when you assist another student if they are in trouble." Naruto thought about what he was told and thought that it wouldn't be a problem for him. "Sounds good to me. I don't think I'll have a problem with getting all that done." Nezu smiled as he knew that Naruto was very skilled and would have no trouble with the practical. "Now there is one other thing that I would like to bring up about you attending the school." "Yes?" Nezu hopped off his chair and went to stand at Naruto's side. "While you are attending the school in order to improve your educational level, I want you to also teach the students of your class." Naruto tilted his head as he didn't get what Nezu was asking. "Huh? Despite how you are considered a criminal in half the eyes of our society, your reason for doing it is noble and seen as the reason all heroes should have. I want you to give them help in seeing this. I am sure that some of the students will be aiming for more selfish reasons, but I want you to try and give them a new perspective on the reason for being a hero. And if possible, help them with their quirk. You have fought many different heroes and villains and have quickly found countermeasures for all of them. With your insight on different types of quirks, you could help improve the ones the students have and could very well push them to go beyond plus ultra." Naruto thought about what was asked and Nezu was right. He had dealt with so many different types of quirks and came up with plans for all of them. But there was something about what was asked of him. "Helping out with their quirks I can do, but if you are asking me to change their way of thinking, that is going to be a lot harder to do. When someone has a goal that they are dead set on going for, anyone else's opinion that might go against it will be ignored. I don't mind trying, but just know that I won't be able to change the minds of everyone." Nezu nodded. "That is more than enough." He brought up a paw for a handshake. Naruto shook it with a smile on his face. "I look forward to seeing how you do during the exam." Pulling his paw away, he then asked. "As such, the quirk you registered is different from the one you use in your vigilante work. Are you more proficient with your chains or did you just not use our second quirk in order to hide more efficiently?" Naruto smiled as he nodded. "It was to hide better. Most people that have a quirk usually just have that one. It is extremely rare for someone to have 2, so I figured that everyone will be looking for someone who can use chains as a quirk, but they wouldn't look for my second quirk. You truly are exceptional at deception." Naruto gained a knowing smile. "It comes with the job description. I have to be in order to keep up the vigilante persona." Nezu nodded as he then pointed out. I knew you would still be doing vigilantism, but I must ask, are you truly the one still playing the part, or is it someone else in it, as I had noticed a slight change in body structure and height. Naruto thought about whether he should keep it a secret or not, but he mentally told himself that he will keep his secrets. It's still me. I'm just using slight stilts and padding to change my body shape. Nezu thought about it and could see how such a thing would help change the body shape, but he could tell that there was something else to it. He would ask about it, but he felt that he should let the boy have this kind of secret since he was already going out there to be a vigilante. Alright, but please pull back on it as it will affect your application negatively. Naruto knew about this and nodded. Alright. I need to get ready for the exam anyway, so I'll hold back on it. Nezu bowed. Thank you. He then walked back to his chair and finished his tea before he began to make his way to the door. I will let you be for the day and I look forward to how you do during the exam. Naruto escorted Nezu out the door as he smirked at the smaller anime. I'm sure you will be surprised about how well I do. Nezu smiled and nodded as he waved goodbye and left to go about his business. Once Naruto was on his own, he sighed and chose to just relax for the rest of the day. Seems like a simple challenge. Couldn't they have doubled it? Just because you haven't had a real challenge in a long time doesn't mean you should ask for trouble. Naruto gave a foxy smile as he walked to the second floor. Hey, you can't deny that you have gotten bored not doing anything. Unlike you, I don't mind not doing anything but sleep. Lazy fox. He walked into his room and undressed before he began shifting into his eight-tailed fox form. Once that was done he jumped into a massive pile of pillows that he had bought when he got the house. He popped his head out from the pile before he laid his head down and sighed in comfort. Hey, I like my lazy moments. Gee, yeah, but you rarely have them. It's always to play the vigilante thing or going out of the city to train in some desolate area. Hey, I play games too, and it's not like I'm doing that much training. I just do some simple jutsu practice and a small sparring match with my clones. You against thousands of your clones is a simple sparring match. And let's not forget that the last small jutsu practice you did caused an earthquake that was reported the next day with a bunch of heroes thinking it was some villain that had an earthquake quirk. You better improve your barrier seals so the next time you use something small, it won't cause panic. Naruto gave a nervous chuckle as he knew that the last training session he had was more destructive than he thought. Okay, I'll make a stronger barrier next time. Gonna have to use it since I have 9 months or so till the exam. Gotta fill up my time with something. Well, you could always. No. I am not even going to consider that. Besides, the only reason you think of that is because you find it funny. Wahahahaha, if only your friends can see you during that. They would laugh too. Sometimes I hate you, Ramatu-san. Day of the exam. Naruto was walking towards the exam building while thinking about how familiar this felt. Damn, it's the Chunin exams all over again. A written exam and then a battle royal. Yep, Chunin exams. There better not be any snakes in this one that will ruin the exams for all of us. One Orochimaru is enough for me. Naruto didn't know how difficult the practical exam was going to be, so he chose to just wear some normal clothes. He was wearing a form-fitting short-sleeved black shirt and a pair of dark blue jeans with dark orange sneakers. Over his shirt, he wore a short-sleeved dark orange hooded jacket and he had very thin bands that took up half of his forearms. The bands had seals on them that both held some supplies as well as weighed him down. Even if he was in this exam, he was still training. He even had another set on his legs too. As he approached the building, he saw that many of the other attendees were wearing school uniforms from other schools. This made him a bit self-conscious as he was one of the very few that was wearing normal clothing. His mind was derailed as he felt a great amount of fear and nervousness. Sure, he felt some of it from many of the others here, but this one was like 4 people put together. Following where the feeling was coming from, he saw a scrawny green-haired boy shaking like crazy. He watched as the kid took a step, or at least tried to, since he tripped on his feet and began to fall face first. Before he could run to help, a girl touched the falling boy's back before the boy began to float. Must be her quirk. Midoriya looked down to see that he was floating and panicked as he had no idea how he was floating. Sorry about that, but I figured that you wouldn't want to fall before you start the exam. Midoriya looked back to see a girl smiling at him. He blushed as he placed his feet on the ground as his levitating ended. The girl smiled at him as she saw that he was okay. She gave a nervous look as she spoke to him. I can tell that you are as nervous as I am. I mean, this is UA after all. You should take a breather if you are that nervous. Both Midoriya and the girl looked to who spoke to see a blonde walking up to them. They were a little intimidated by his slitted eyes, but the smile counteracted it. Naruto smiled at the two as he could feel the nervousness coming from the two, but interestingly enough, the boy had a slight pang of fear. For what, Naruto did not know. This may be the best school there is to make you a hero, but you should think to yourself that you are ready for this. He then realized that he didn't introduce himself. "Sorry, I'm Naruto Uzumaki." He waved to them with a smile. The girl smiled back as she bowed. "I'm Uraraka Ichako. Nice to meet you." Midoriya muttered out. "I'm Izuku Midoriya." He was a little intimidated by the newcomer since the spiky blonde hair almost reminded him of Kacchan. Naruto smiled at the two which he saw calmed down the boy. "Nice to meet you too. You should just take a breath and prep yourself. Once we pass, we will be students of UA." Uraraka got pumped at that as she smiled even brighter. "You're right. We just need to pass this exam and we will be one step closer to being a hero." Naruto nodded before he looked at the boy. "Dude, you need to relax. You're here and you should tell yourself that you are ready." Midoriya looked up and saw Naruto smile at him reassuringly and he felt some of his confidence come back. "Yeah." Naruto nodded as he gestured towards the building. "Come on. We should head inside and get this exam started." Uraraka nodded. "Yeah, let's go." Midoriya blushed harder as Uraraka patted him on the shoulder and he began to shuffle his way towards the building. Naruto watched them go inside and chuckled. Well, at least he is less afraid and nervous now. If only a bit. Naruto made his way inside as he thought about how he would be getting past this part. Once inside, Naruto was glad that the massive testing area had dim lights as if it was a theater, and before he made his way to his seat, he moved to a dark corner where no one would be able to see him clearly. Now in the corner, he unsealed a set of binoculars before he made 5 clones that immediately grabbed the binoculars and disappeared from the corner. Was afraid that it would be a smaller room, but this works out so much better. He made it to his seat and looked ahead to wait for the exam to start. One thing he noticed though was odd. He looked to his right and saw a set of floating clothes. Does someone have a quirk that controls clothes or something? Curiosity got the better of him and he decided to poke the empty space where the neck would be if someone was wearing them. Biggle hey. That tickles. Naruto pulled back his hand and held them up in surrender. Whoa, sorry. I thought someone was controlling the clothes with their quirk. I didn't know you were wearing them. That sounded so weird. The girl that was in the floating clothes shifted a bit till she was turned to him. At least Naruto thought she was turned to him based on the position of the clothes. Controlling clothes sounds like a cool quirk. But no, my quirk is invisibility and my name is Toru Hagakure. Naruto saw the extended sleeve and figured that she was holding out a hand for a handshake. He brought his hand up and aimed to try and shake her hand. "My name is Naruto Uzumaki." "Fish cake." She gripped his hand and shook it as she giggled at the deadpan the boy made. Naruto groaned as this wasn't the first time someone said that. It means maelstrom. "Aw, but fish cake is cuter." She giggled again till she saw his eyes. "Whoa, are your eyes your quirk cause they look cool." Naruto, for some reason, could swear he saw stars popping up out of nowhere, but he smiled and said. "Well, you could say they are a quirk of my quirk, but no. They are just something I inherited from my father, one of them. But they are just for show. My quirk is something better." "Better you say? You should have registered one of the abilities you inherited from me. You just want to show off what a bijuu can do in a world of heroes." "Maybe." Hagakure bounced in her seat as she said. "Ooh, you make it sound cool. I hope to see it soon." Naruto shrugged. "Maybe later during the school year." Before anything else could be said, Naruto felt someone sit on his other side. Turning around, he saw it was a boy that had an interesting shaped head. Naruto could feel the nervousness coming off the boy and felt that he should help the guy out. "Hey, you should relax. You'll be able to think clearly if you aren't doubting yourself." The boy jumped in surprise as he didn't expect someone to talk to him. Thank you." "You're welcome." The boy was once again surprised at this. You can understand me?" Naruto was confused about this as he tilted his head. "Well, yeah, why wouldn't I?" Hagakure looked over and spoke up. "Wait, did he say something? I didn't hear it. By the way, hi, I'm Toru Hagakure." The boy nodded as he looked at her. "I'm Koji Koda." Toru waited for a response, but she didn't hear anything. Naruto smiled at Koji. "It's nice to meet you, Koji. I'm Naruto Uzumaki." Toru looked at Naruto in shock. "Wait, how did you?" Koji smiled as this Naruto was able to hear him. He knew that many people couldn't hear him except for animals, as his quirk allowed him to speak to them even if he didn't use his voice. "You can actually hear me?" It was then that he saw the blonde's eyes and came up with an idea. "Maybe it is because of some of the animalistic attributes that you have. Based on those eyes, fox attribute, right?" Naruto flinched at how the boy seemed to become excited all of a sudden and the fact that he guessed something about him. But he calmed down since he said attribute. He guessed that Koji thinks it is part of his quirk. Kinda. It was then that an announcement was heard saying that the exam is about to start and that once the buzzer went off they are allowed to turn the piece of paper in front of them over so they can start. The three sat straight and got ready to begin the test. Not seconds later, the buzzer went off and the test began. Naruto sat there staring at the questions. Thanks to his studying, which he forced his clones to do for him, he was able to answer some of them. But when he got to the ones he didn't know, he tapped his pencil on 3 times on the questions that he didn't know. Up in the rafters, the clones saw him tap the questions, and one of them used the binoculars to look for someone who answered the question confidently. After seeing one that had a couple of Naruto's unanswered questions answered, one of the clones dispelled and sent the answer to the original. Naruto wrote down the answer once he got the memories of his clone. This was how it went throughout the test, and Naruto knew that he had this part of the test down. Once the exam was done, everyone was informed about the practical exam and the robotic enemies they had to deal with by President Mike. Alright. Now that we got the boring stuff out of the way, let's move on to the main event. Behind the man was a screen that showed 3 silhouetted figures and an icon of a city. During this exam you will be facing off against 3 different enemies, each with a set number of points. Your job is to use your quirk in order to rack up the most points you can get. Excuse me, sir. I have a question. President Mike looked to the boy that spoke and pointed at him as a spotlight was turned on to show the boy. Lay it on me. The boy brought up a slip of paper that had the same image as the screen, but instead of 3 figures, it had 4. On the information you gave us, it shows we have 4 enemies, not 3. If this is a mistake on UA's part, it is a complete disgrace. He lowered the paper and placed his hand on his chest. We are exemplary students, such mishandling of things shows a lack of foresight. It was then that he turned around and pointed at Midoriya. On that note, you with the messy unkempt hair. Midoriya panicked at being pointed at. Who, me? The glasses-wearing boy gave a hard stare at him as he spoke. You've been muttering all this time. Stop it. If you can't take this seriously then you should just leave. He stopped in his reprimanding when he was hit in the side of the head by a pencil eraser. Hey, stiff-looking boy with glasses, you should relax a bit. If you are going to be such a stickler for the rules, then you should be a lawyer instead of a hero. You've got the look for it. A few of the students chuckled at that. Tenya was incensed at this, but he didn't have time to think about it as President Mike continued. Yes, well, let me explain about the 4th enemy. Another silhouette showed up with the other 3. The last one is more of an obstacle. It's worth 0 points so you don't have to beat it. You can if you want but there really is no point. Then you shook off a shock and looked to President Mike. Thank you very much for the explanation. He bowed before sitting down. Everyone was told where they would need to go for this and they began to make their way out. Naruto made sure to grab the binoculars that his last remaining clone had before leaving for the bus that would take him to the battle arena he would be taking his exam at. Once they arrived, Naruto looked at the massive doors that lead into the mock city in contemplation. Okay, so the best way to do this will be to get in as many rescue points first before I go for the combat points. Sounds fun. He then noticed Midoriya shaking in his skin and shook his head. Guy needs to relax. He walked over to him and placed a hand on his shoulder. Midoriya jumped at the sudden touch and turned around to see Naruto standing there. Oh, Naruto. You need to relax. Getting this nervous before it begins is just going to plant you in place. Hell, you're so nervous I wouldn't be surprised that when the doors open, you won't be able to move. Midoriya cried at the thought that he was being told he wouldn't have a chance at this. Naruto quickly saw the negative effect his words had and tried to fix it. Hey, all I'm saying is that you steel your nerves and charge in with all the confidence you can muster. You made it here, now show everyone that you are worthy of being here. Midoriya looked up at Naruto and remembered the words that All Might said to him. There is a difference between lucky and deserving. One is by accident, the other is a reward. You are deserving of my great power. I know this, now you must show the world that you are. So when the time comes, clench your butt cheeks, kid, and yell out from the depths of your heart. Midoriya smiled and nodded at Naruto. Said blonde looked up and saw Uraraka. Come on, let's go help out Uraraka's nerves. Having a friend in this helps out. Hold it. Both Naruto and Midoriya looked behind them to see Tenya giving them a hard stare. Tenya followed their gaze and saw that they were going to one of the other contestants. She looks like she is prepping herself for this test. What are you two planning to do? Sabotage her chances of success? At this many of the other students looked over to see them and focused on Midoriya. Hey, isn't it the kid that fell on his own foot at the entrance? Yeah, I noticed that he is a nervous wreck even before the written portion. The girl had to save him from face-planting before. In unison, everyone there had the same thought with some of them saying out loud. He's out. Midoriya felt like everyone there was already checking him to be a failure of this part of the exam. Everyone's thoughts halted when they felt an oppressive aura take over them and a lot of them began to sweat in fear as they tried to find out where it was coming from. Naruto turned his head to the group of people as he spoke in a calm tone. For someone who wants to become heroes, you guys seem to immediately trash on someone just because they are nervous. If this is how you are, you should quit now cause none of you deserve to be a hero. He then looked to Ida and spoke. Sabotage. Is that what encouraging someone is now? Just cause this is a test doesn't mean that we should all be against each other. He then withdrew his kai as he made his point. He made sure that he focused it on specific individuals as he didn't want to scare those that were just trying to get ready. As such, many of the others were looking at the others as they didn't understand why they all stiffened and were sweating. It was then that Present Mike appeared on top of the gate. Alright. It's time to get started. Get ready to run cause you have a limited amount of time. Now go, go, go. The gates opened up and this shocked all of them out of their fear and they ran through the gate. Naruto saw Midoriya was confused at what happened and pushed the guy forward. Go on and pass the exam. I'll see you at UA. Midoriya looked back and smiled at Naruto before he ran after everyone else. Naruto watched everyone go inside before he chose to go after them. Alright, here we go. The whole thing was somewhat chaotic. The judges and teachers were watching as many of the students went all out on the robots. So far, many of them are aiming to have the most points. And I can say that it isn't very heroic that some of them are stealing the opponent of others. Well, with how much they want to get into the school, students usually only see their own goals. Yes, but there are always the ones that show true heroics. Nezu listened to the other teachers talk about the candidates that were on the screens as he also judged by how well they do. Though he would on occasion see how his investment was doing and he was pleased to see that Naruto was gathering many rescue points first. Clever. Rescue points tend to be harder to achieve with what you need to do, so going for those first can help him out. He was also impressed with how skilled the boy was with his second quirk. Versatile, deadly, yet controlled. He is very skilled in it as well. Glad to see that my hunch was correct. One of the students tripped on broken robot parts as he was running away from a three-pointer. He looked back to see that it was about to bring its arm down on him. Ah. The robot was about to crush the student but froze in place. The student looked up at the robot and wondered why it didn't attack. He got his answer when he saw the robot fall apart from a clean cut that went diagonally down its body. He wondered what happened till he looked up and saw a blonde floating in the air. He watched as the blonde gave him a two-fingered salute before flying off with large gusts of wind blowing around him. Naruto lowered himself to the top of a rooftop as he looked around for another robot. He sighed as he mentally groaned. I had to go with wind manipulation. I could have just put energy manipulation so I can use all my powers, but no, wind manipulation was what I went with. Hey, you can't complain about it now that we are in this. Sure I can. It is my power and limits so I can complain about it if I want to. It was then he saw a group of robots chasing another student. He took a deep breath as he focused his chakra and changed it into wind chakra to swirl around his legs before he flew off towards the student to rescue him. I'm sure that I have enough points already to pass, but I can't just let these guys get hurt if I can help it. He got to the ground before he spun around and sent as much wind out of his palm to blow away the robots. Once the robots were destroyed, he went to the student and helped him up. Go on. Find another robot on its own and gather as many points as you can. He watched as the guy nodded and ran off. With this, he flew up into the air so he could look around. Boom. Naruto looked to where the loud sound came from and saw a massive robot. Oh. He flew off towards the robot and saw that many of the students were running from the large robot. He flew down to grab a few of them to be out of the way of falling rubble and the like. Forget the points, these guys need help. He moved them further away from the robot before he flew back to grab another student. Once he thought he got everyone, he heard a scream of pain and looked down to see that Uraraka was pinned by some debris and in the path of the robot. That's it. He flew down to rescue her. Once I get her out of the way, I'm taking this robot down. He landed next to the girl and began to pick up the rock on her foot. As he did this, there was another gust of wind and he caught something flying towards the robot's head and he looked to see who it was. Midoriya. Midoriya was trying to get away from the robot that came out of nowhere as he was sure that no one would be able to take out something that big. How do the teachers think we can take something like that down? He spun around to look up at the robot in fear as the other students ran away. I need to run and find some other robots to get at least some points. Ow. Midoriya looked towards the sound and saw the girl he talked to earlier trapped under some rubble. He saw that with the way she was and how close the robot was, she wouldn't be able to get out of the way in time unless something saves her. Seeing this caused him to get to his feet and run toward her. I don't know what I'm doing, but I have to do something. On instinct he bent his knees and felt power rushing through his legs before pushing off the ground and towards the robot's head. When the time comes, clench your butt cheeks, kid, and yell out from the depths of your heart. He pulled his fist back as he felt power course through his arm and yelled out. Smash. Midoriya punched the robot square in the center, causing a massive dent to appear on the robot, which caused it to begin to explode from the sheer force. Naruto was wide-eyed at the amount of force that came from the guy's punch till he smirked. Now that's a quirk. He was impressed at how Midoriya destroyed the robot and made a mental note to congratulate the guy when this was all over. He watched as Midoriya descended to the ground but soon realized that it wasn't a descent. He's falling. He looked down to tell Ichako to move so he could save him, but he saw that she was already out from the concrete he was holding up. He looked behind him to see her cause a large robot piece to float before she used it as a platform and flew over to where Midoriya was falling. He watched as the girl timed her placement perfectly and slapped the boy before he hit the ground. He winced at that but was grateful when he saw Midoriya float above the ground instead of going splat. He sighed in relief as he knew that the guy wasn't going to die from this, but his eyes did focus on the arms and legs of Midoriya. What the hell? He tried to think on what the reason for such a result till he thought. Did he use more power than he is used to? Risky, but I guess it got the job done. He then noticed Ichako vomit out her lunch and made his way to her to make sure she was okay. Time's up. Naruto looked up at the sound and sighed at the fact that the whole thing was finished. He looked over to Midoriya and saw that he looked as if someone told him that it was the end of the world. He walked over to him after Ichako said she was okay. He knelt down and asked. Hey, what's up? I didn't get a single point. He was surprised at the news and looked between him and the shattered robot. No points. But he has the power to get a bunch of them. Something is up. He noticed that the boy fell unconscious and wondered if there was a medical team that would come and get him. He then saw a short old woman come in and give gummies to everyone. Once he got his own, he saw the old woman stretch her lips to a ridiculous degree and Midoriya's body began to heal rapidly. Well, at least he won't be a broken mess, but does she have to do that for her quirk to work? End of chapter. Chapter 4. First day and conflict already. What the hell? Inside a nice-looking house came the growling shout of an upcoming here and future student of UA. How the hell did that little twerp end up being accepted? Itsuki Bakugo was glaring murderously at the list that was projected in front of him. Earlier he was smiling like mad when he got the acceptance speech from All Might. Once it was over, it had a button that allowed the students to look at all the results of the students. This was usually done so that the students would get an idea of where they stacked up and who would be joining the school for potential friends and allies. Kitsuki thought grew furious when he saw the list. More specifically the name of the one that was placed in 7th. Izuku Midoriya. That little punk should have been accepted. Bakugo. It's too late to be shouting in the house. Shut up, you hag. What did you say to me? You heard me. That's it. I'm gonna teach you some manners. Bakugo glared at the list as he heard his mother stomping towards his room. He punched the wall with no real strength. That little bug should never be a hero. He completely forgot about the name that was placed above his. Second place. Kitsuki Bakugo. Villain points. 115. Rescue points. 0. 1 RST place. Naruto Uzumaki. Villain points. 335. Rescue points. 788. Naruto's home. Naruto was staring at his animal mix friend who was sipping a cup of tea. How did you get in here? Nezu smiled as he continued to sip his tea. While he did this, he brought up a paw to show the spare key. Naruto deadpanned at that before he sat in the seat across from Nezu. I'm going to just destroy that thing later on. Nezu put both his cup of tea and the key onto the table as he smiled. I think that would just be cruel if you need an ally to come into your household in case you are too busy. Now I am pleased that you were able to achieve what was requested of you. Beyond flying colors, and I am surprised with how skilled you are with a wind quirk. Naruto poured himself a cup of tea as he nodded. My wind quirk is the one that has more usage than my chains. As he said this, he had the mental image of his mother beating the hell out of a very proud and possibly smug father. He wasn't saying that the chains he inherited from his mother weren't powerful or useful, but he had more mobility using wind chakra, and with how much chakra control training he went through and how much chakra manipulation training added to it, he had more control over it. Nezu nodded as he placed his cup of tea down before looking at the boy. Now, about what I asked you before. Naruto thought back to the last time they met and the request he was asked. You mean how you wanted me to push the other kids into having a more honest goal? Nezu nodded. He clasped his paws together and leaned back in his seat. Yes, I know that what you said is accurate about it and I have to agree. As such, although I would still like you to do as such, focus more on helping them in the usage of their quirks. Naruto raised an eyebrow. You sure move from one request to another. Comes with new information and opportunities. Anyway, with your score, you will be part of the hero course of UA, but I was able to discuss this matter with the teachers that know that I recommended you. I informed them that you have extensive knowledge of how quirks work and will be able to contribute greatly to quirk development. As such, you have slightly more privileges when it comes to teaching the other students. This does not give you more authority on the matter as the professor still has the final say. But if you have an idea on how they can improve their quirk, then please state it or teach it. Naruto leaned in his chair as he looked up at the ceiling and thought. Sounds like he wants me to be a teacher's aide. He had to hold back a growl as he remembered the last teacher aide he knew. I've never really taught anyone anything before. Konohamaru doesn't count since I just showed him how to do a henge and what to turn into. But Iruka, Jiraiya and Kakashi did say that I am creative in training and making new jutsu. And they aren't wrong. I don't think I ever heard of anyone using wind chakra to fly in the air. Sure, Temari used it to glide for a bit, but that isn't really flying. Not to mention how Tsunade forced me to write down my methods of chakra control, since my method was apparently faster and more beneficial than the other ones. Though it is hard as hell for those who don't have a lot of chakra. Poor Ino. He continued this thought process for a minute more as he wasn't sure if he could come up with anything for quirks since they are fundamentally different from jutsu. But if Nezu was going to put his faith in him, then he would at least give it a try. He looked back at the expectant look of Nezu and nodded. I'll do my best to help them out in how to use their quirk. But that is once again going to be up to them. If they want the help, then I will give it. Nezu smiled as he expected this answer. That is perfect. Now, I am sure you are able to surmise that based on my request, you are a sort of teacher's aide, and after some discussion with the other instructors, we have agreed that it is what you will be considered. With the results you showed, you have a good understanding of the rules. He chuckled as he waved his paw in a jokingly dismissive way. Despite your usage of this knowledge to break them. Anyway, you will be given much more to do compared to the other students, as you will also aid them in their quirks. We are considering having you create a club where other students may join and practice their quirks under your and one other instructor's watch. Naruto shrugged. Sure, I don't mind. Though I get the feeling that you are also trying to keep me busy enough that I won't have a chance to actually go out as a vigilante. Nezu took another sip of tea without losing his smile. I won't lie, that also came to mind when deciding how you would aid the others. Naruto internally smirked since, despite the intelligence of Nezu, there were things that he still didn't know about Naruto. Nezu put his tea down before he continued. Anyway, there are still some matters that need to be dealt with before this is fully finalized, but I hope you are able to help your fellow young heroes that you will be meeting. As he said this, he thought about another student that was also accepted into Class 1A. The inheritor of One for All. Midoriya household. My baby. Inko Midoriya was crying her eyes out at the fact that her son had gotten accepted into UA. She was hugging him while letting out a fountain of tears into his shirt. Izuku was giving a wavy smile at how happy he was accepted. He was so sure that he wouldn't be able to get in, but it was thanks to the rescue points that he received that got him into the school. I made it. Inko finally got off him, but still had a spray of tears coming out of her eyes. She grabbed her son's sleeve and then began to drag him into the kitchen. Come on. We are celebrating. I'll make you all of your favorite dishes. You can think of this as a cheat day from your diet. Izuku laughed at this as he allowed her to drag him into the kitchen. He was too happy to deny her this. The two entered the dining room with Inko going to the kitchen to make the meal and Izuku joining her despite her protests that he should just let her do it. But he wouldn't allow that as he just wanted to help. In the end, Inko allowed him to join her in the kitchen and the two began cooking with him thinking about his future at UA. The first day. Naruto was pulling at the collar of his uniform as he hated wearing something so formal. The reason he had to wear it was because he was told to make a good impression on the teacher. Why couldn't Nezu tell me who the teacher even is? How does he expect me to make a good impression if I don't know who it is? Flashback. Naruto and Nezu were meeting once more a week before school started as they were going over some of the needed information and looking over Naruto's liberties while he is at the school. Now, on the first day of class, I would recommend that you arrive early so that you will be able to see all the students as they come in and get a feel for them. Naruto nodded as he lifted his school uniform with a slight grimace. No problem. Though, one thing I'm looking forward to is seeing their quirks in action. I know I read about what abilities they have, but seeing them is more helpful than words. Understandable. He took another sip of his tea before he gained a teasing smirk. And coming in early will make a good first impression with the teacher you will be working with. Naruto looked to Nezu and asked. Who am I working with? You never told me who I was assisting with training and all the documents that might have told me had the name blacked out by you most likely. Nezu tilted his head innocently. Whatever do you mean? Naruto narrowed his eyes as he knew that act. It was an act that any master prankster would know. It was the obvious I know, but I won't tell you because it will be funnier. Look. Now I really want to know. Nezu continued his innocent act as he wished he could see Naruto's face when he finds out. End of flashback. Naruto continued to walk the hallways as he made a mental map of the building. He had been here for the last hour and a half getting the layout of the place. He pulled out his phone and looked at the time and saw that there was an hour left till class started. Well, that should be it for scoping the place. Now I better get to class. Who are you? Naruto turned around at the one who spoke and his eyes widened a bit in surprise at the sight of a large canine man making his way toward him. Wow, I know I smelled a canine odor here, but I didn't think I would see one of those animal quirks. The canine man stood a few feet in front of the boy and asked in a gravelly voice. I asked you who you were. Naruto was looking up at the guy and answered in a normal voice. My name is Naruto Uzumaki. I'm a new student and the training assistant for Class 1A. Naruto looked the guy over and then remembered that this was Hound Dog. He is one of the heroes he had to be careful around since the guy had the ability to track someone by scent. Thankfully, he had seals that were able to remove scent entirely. He had plenty of practice making those seals with Akamaru and his pranking marathons against the Inuzuka clan compound. He mentally chuckled at that when he remembered when he unleashed fleas on the entire compound and both canine and shinobi of the clan were writhing in agony as they tried to deal with the fleas as long as they could. He was sure that Tsume was close to mauling him if he didn't offer to return the flea treatment that all clan members owned. Hound Dog tilted his head as he looked the boy over. I've heard of you from the principal. He says you have a talent for helping others in learning their quirks and how to use them efficiently. Naruto shrugged. I've studied a bunch of different quirks and I like to think what I could do with it if I had that power other than my own. He was surprised when he was suddenly grabbed by the shoulders. The reason for the surprise was that there was no malice in the action and only annoyance. He soon found himself being shaken by Hound Dog as he ranted. You shouldn't think like that ever. You should be proud of the quirk you have since it is the quirk you got from your parents. Do them proud and make your way to the top and become the hero they wanted you to be. Naruto felt dizzy from the shaking and did his best to hold back his fighter instinct so he wouldn't attack the guy. He wasn't being attacked, he was just being scolded in a very aggressive manner. Once he was released from Hound Dog's grip, the world was still spinning and he wasn't sure if his healing was even working on his rattled brain. I like him. You like the guy that tried to turn my brains into scrambled eggs? Very funny, Dad. He shook his head to get his sight back and nodded to Hound Dog as he didn't want to get shaken again. Got it. Hound Dog nodded before sniffing the air. He then looked at the kid and tilted his head. You got a pet fox on you or something? Naruto looked up at him and shook his head. No. But maybe you are just smelling me. He didn't feel the need to hide his fox attribute since his eyes are kinda a dead giveaway. I do have fox features after all. Hound Dog then noticed his eyes and the whiskers. That explains it. But if that is why you wish you had others' quirks, then you need to learn how to appreciate the quirk you have. Naruto nodded in a way of understanding so that he wouldn't get another lecture. Hound Dog nodded before he looked at a wall clock and saw that he needed to head to the teacher's lounge to get some things he needed. Well, remember what I told you and get going. Naruto smiled and waved bye to the canine hero. Once the hero was gone, Naruto turned around and began to walk away with a thought in his mind. Maybe I could show more of my other side. You already displayed to Nezu 2 of your powers. Let's not give him any more details on your skills. But I could let my tails loose, or at least one of them. It would be more comfortable for me to have them out instead of hiding them. That may be, but you shouldn't show all your cards so soon just cause you've been given a pass to use your abilities somewhat more freely. Naruto groaned as he made his way down the hall. Why the hell does this world have to have people with just 1 or 2 powers? He decided that it was time to make his way to the classroom. He made his way to the classroom and saw that there was no one inside yet. He smiled as he thought it was a good way to scope out the incoming students, and the best way to do that is to observe them before they come in. Peeking his head outside, he saw that the coast was clear in the hall and smirked. Looking around the classroom and saw there was no camera, normal or otherwise, he put his hands in a hand sign and soon disappeared from sight. He moved out into the hall and gently leaned on the window and waited for the students of Class 1A. It didn't take long till the students began to enter the class and Naruto watched as they walked in and take their place. He made mental notes on some of the behavior he could see of them as they entered. He could tell there were a bunch of different personalities from all of them. He couldn't help but deadpan at Tenuida as he seemed to be the by-the-book punctual student, Bakugo who was clearly going to be an issue, and Yuga Aoyama, who not only had this very attention-seeking personality but felt extremely nervous. Naruto shrugged that last one off since it wasn't his problem. He didn't know Aoyama personally and he figured that a bunch of them would be nervous on their first day. He leaned his head back and silently groaned when there was a massive perversion coming from a very short kid with purple balls on his head in place of his hair. Minoru Mineta, gonna have to keep an eye on him since I get the feeling that he is going to be just as bad as Jiraiya. He did a mental checklist to see that most of the students had arrived, but there were 2 still missing. Okay, the only ones missing are Chako Uraraka and Izuku Midoriya. He felt another bundle of nervousness coming his way and looked to his right to see that said boy was making his way. Speak of the devil. Midoriya gulped as he made his way to the door that led to class 1A. Okay, I'm here. I did my best to get to this point, and this is my first step to becoming the number one hero. He reached for the handle before he paused and mentally asked. I really hope those two aren't in class, but I do hope that Naruto is. He was nice to me. He thought about Bakugo and Iida when he made the wish that they weren't in the class, but hoped the other blonde was since he was a nice person. He opened the door and immediately regretted it since he saw both Bakugo and Iida arguing with the latter reprimanding the former for putting his feet on the desk and no sign of the other spiky-haired blonde. Naruto watched as Iida stopped arguing and made his way to Midoriya. Okay, with him here that just leaves whoop, here she comes and what the hell is that? He saw that coming from down the hall. Uraraka was making her way towards the class and that would make the last of the students, but what really got his attention was a massive yellow caterpillar behind her. He pushed off the window and made his way to the caterpillar. He moved to be behind the caterpillar and took one slow step at a time to keep pace with it. Shrugging, he pulled out his phone and began to record the caterpillar. Don't know what this thing is, but I'm gonna need proof if I need to report this. It was as he did this that the scent came to his nose. Wait, I know that scent, but no, he looked past his still recording phone and looked at the caterpillar that came to a stop behind Uraraka. He almost jumped when said caterpillar spoke. If you're here to make friends, then you should pack up and leave now. Naruto knew that voice and slowly lowered his phone as he saw the face of the person. He put his phone away and mentally cursed that little weasel known as Nezu. You're probably getting a laugh at this, aren't you? He looked around the hall and was once again glad that there was no camera set up there. He moved to be out of sight of the others and released the jutsu that made him invisible. Time to play the part. Aizawa got to his feet as he looked at the new candidates for his class. Well, safe to say that I'm not impressed with how long it took you to respond to my arrival. He looked around the class before sighing. Has anyone seen me? Everyone jumped at the sound of someone they couldn't see and they looked over Aizawa's shoulder to see another spiky-haired blonde standing there nonchalantly. Midoriya smiled as he saw who it was. Naruto. You're part of this class too. Naruto looked at the green-haired boy and shrugged. In a manner of speaking. Aizawa, though, eyed the boy. So you're the one that Nezu recommended for the role. He sized Naruto up and down and narrowed his eyes. Where were you? I'm pretty sure that you were informed that you were to arrive sooner so you could introduce yourself. Even as he said this, he internally wondered. How did he get behind me? I couldn't tell he was there. Naruto smiled as he pointed to the side at another hallway. I've been watching as everyone entered the classroom and made mental notes about them. No way. Naruto looked back to the class and saw the clear signs of Toru gesturing from him to where he pointed. How did you hide since a lot of us walked past that? Naruto chuckled as he crossed his arms. It's not like I was hiding. I just stood there and watched. You guys just didn't know I was there observing you. Plus you guys were most likely looking for the class. Aizawa sighed as he wanted to get things moving. Alright, that's enough. He then looked into the classroom and announced. I'm Shota Aizawa, your teacher. Everyone was startled by this announcement as they did not expect someone that looked like they were about to collapse from exhaustion to be their teacher. Aizawa ignored their reaction and reached into his sleeping bag. All of you get dressed in these gym uniforms you should have been given along with your school uniform. He pulled out a spare one before looking back to Naruto. You, too. Naruto raised an eyebrow since he was not informed about anything that needed them to get dressed into the gym uniform. What's this about? Aizawa just put away his sleeping bag and began to walk away. Something I planned for all of you. Naruto narrowed his eyes at those words before looking at the rest of the class. Well, better get changed. Whatever he has planned, we don't want to keep him waiting. Iida nodded before he turned to the rest of the class and announced. You heard the teacher, let us get ready. Naruto wondered what Aizawa was planning, but again, he had to wait to see what it was. Meanwhile, Ashinori Yagi was sitting in the teacher's lounge as he read the setup for the classes and the schedule for the future. I wonder what homeroom teacher young Midoriya has. Depending on who it is, he might have trouble getting through things. He finally made it to class 1 and cringed. Damn it, they have Aizawa. Things are gonna be hell for him if he even gets past his hazing. As he read the roster, he saw a spot that struck him as odd. Special aid. Naruto Uzumaki. Oh yeah, he's the special case that Nezu recommended. But what's this about special aid? He never told me about it. He thought about why he wasn't informed about this since Nezu knew about One for All's inheritor and he figured he should be in the know about the class. Then again, I wasn't told about Aizawa either. Maybe I should go see how they're doing. Since he had free time at the moment, he chose to follow up with that thought. Hallways. The entire class made their way through the halls of the campus leading to the field. Naruto looked at every one of the students and thought about their powers. Different powers, each one different in aspect, so I won't be able to come up with something that works for multiple of them. Though, I can probably work on basics with a lot of them and show them what I know. Though, not everything. As he walked, his hand immediately came up and grasped something beside his head. "Aw, I was sure that I would have been able to touch them." Naruto looked to his right, only to see nothing. Looking a little lower, he saw the floating gym clothes signifying Toru. "What were you trying to touch, Toru?" "Their whiskers. I wanted to see what they felt like." Naruto gave her a deadpan look. "My face isn't a toy, Toru." "Aw, but they look so cute, and with your eyes, you look like a kitty." Naruto let go of her hand and groaned as he heard the barking laughter of Rama in his head. "Laugh it up, I will get back at you for that." "By doing what, kid? You know that you have little sway over me." "I'll think of Guy-sensei and Lee doing their famous jutsu." "You and I both know that's a lie. You've never seen it, so you can't threaten me with a memory you never had." Naruto mentally whined as he wasn't sure if he should thank Tenten or be mad at her for not giving him this ammo. Toru, not knowing about Naruto's internal plight, asked. "So what do you think Mr. Aizawa has planned for us?" Naruto shrugged. "Don't know, I wasn't told anything about this from the principal, so I have no clue." Toru gained a question mark over her head. "Why would the principal tell you about that? Seems like something only teachers would know." Naruto looked at her and remembered that they wouldn't know his role here. "Oh, well, the reason for that is. We're here." Naruto looked ahead as he heard the red-haired boy, Ijiro Kirishima, shout out their arrival. Everyone walked up to Aizawa, who was waiting for them. Once they gathered, Uraraka asked. Sir, what are we doing out here? Shouldn't we be at orientation?" Aizawa looked around at the class before he responded. "Right now we are going to have a quirk assessment test. It's a waste of time to be at something that holds little to no importance in the real world. Here at UA, we aren't bogged down by the usual standard curriculum. This means that I can run the show my way. Before you came here, you've done the standardized testing that is equal to all who take them. But you've never had the chance to use your quirks to do them." He brought up his phone to show a digital list of standard physical tests. "The board is still trying to see everyone as equal by not letting the ones with the strongest quirks excel beyond others. Frankly, I think they should get the message and learn." Naruto thought back to what he learned about how things were run, and he had to agree that it was a little backward keeping those who could go further to stay with others that need more help. In terms of equality, it works, in terms of practicality, it was stupid. Naruto, though, figured that it should be different. Those that can excel should be allowed to, but they shouldn't be put up on a pedestal, as if they were gifts from Kami. That sort of thing brings arrogance. Something he had seen in Neji before he beat him into the ground. It's why he liked Lee. Lee was seen as the bottom of the list, the weakest, the dead last of his class. Yet after training his body to the breaking point and beyond, he became one of the best Jujutsu fighters Konoha had ever had. Even when he was a genin, Lee could take down a lot of jonin. Naruto was brought out of his thoughts when Aizawa began speaking to him. "Naruto, since you've been given such a high recommendation, gotten the best scores on the exam, and are set as what you are, why don't you show us what you've got?" Naruto shrugged as he walked forward. "Sure, what do you need? I haven't really been informed about what this is all about." He caught a ball that was tossed to him by the teacher. "Let's see how far you can throw that with your quirk. I want to see if you are capable of what was given to you." Naruto eyed Aizawa and could tell there was annoyance in the man. He didn't need his senses to tell him that. "Alright. But just to let you know, I wasn't given the role because of my power. I was given the role because of my imagination and ability to help others with their own quirk." "That may be, but I still don't know why Nezu gave you this role. You're the same age as the rest of them, yet Nezu sees something that I don't. We will see if you have anything worth giving to gain the role as my aide." He turned around and moved to stand on the side to observe. "And just to be clear, I don't agree with Nezu on this." Naruto sighed as he should have figured that Aizawa would be like this, since he got a bit of a feel on the man from all the times they had fought each other, and this seems like something he would do. "Fine, I'll show you what I can do." It was then that Mina Ishido stepped forward and asked. Sir, what are you guys talking about? You make it sound like he is something other than a student here. You even said he was your aide, what does that mean?" Momoyae Rozu also made her confusion known. "I am also confused about this. And from what I could gather from what you spoke of, he was recommended by the principal, but can you clarify it?" Aizawa looked to the ones that asked him before looking back at Naruto, who was now standing in the test area. "It's because the principal thinks he has something to show us." Naruto watched the ball go up in the air before back into his hand as he tossed it up and down. "Okay, well, let's show him." He held the ball in his right hand as he hovered the left one over it. Aizawa eyed the blonde as he continued. "Naruto there was given the privilege of being my aide through the school year." The students then turned to Naruto in awe as they had not heard of this, but they soon had to cover their faces with their arms as the wind began to pick up. Naruto focused on converting his chakra into wind element. To make an impression of his power to Aizawa, he chose to allow the wind chakra to make a miniature hurricane around him. Aizawa narrowed his eyes as he watched the control Naruto had over the wind. He's either going wild or showcasing the amount of wind he can bring under his control. Naruto allowed the wind to go wild for a few seconds before he brought it back down into a more controlled swirl of wind around the ball. Aizawa saw how the ball was now floating in between the boy's hands. He's showing that the amount of power he has is under his control. A way to show that he has something to offer, not just to them but to me as well. Guess he didn't like my doubt, but I'm still not convinced. Naruto concentrated his wind chakra around the ball. Well, what do you think? Are you trying to get a bijuu to scratch a tickle? The hell is with this weak amount of power behind that wind? Naruto did his best to not show any displeasure on his face. I'm trying to show off just a bit, not go into battle with a bijuu. Clearly, cause that amount of power wouldn't even get my attention. This time Naruto did deadpan for a second. Are you mad that I'm not showing off more power? Nick it, showing this amount of power to these ninja that can't even give you a workout. Naruto groaned at that as he brought his hands up, palms facing forward and the ball floating in front of them. Just like when he uses his bijuu dama. Just shut up and let me do this. He then launched the ball into the air with a shockwave that threw many of the others onto the ground. The other students covered their faces from the shockwave and watched in awe as the ball was sent flying. Aizawa looked down at his phone which had the distance recorded on it. Well, now you all know what his role is and an idea of what you'll all be doing. He brought up the display to show 1019 meters. The students were shocked at the numbers shown on the phone. Aizawa lowered the phone once he knew that they saw Naruto's score. We need to know what each of you is capable of. That way, we can assess how to handle you as we move forward. Enki Kaminari was slack-jawed at the number as he didn't expect someone to throw that far. What kind of number is that? After the shock died down, most of the others began to get excited about how they would be able to use their quirks more freely. Naruto dusted his hands as he began to walk back to the group. Well, that showed them. Pathetic. Oh, shut up. Later on, we can fight and I'll show you pathetic. That's if playing Vigilante hadn't made you soft. You've been my training partner and watching me improve all this time and you really think I became weaker? I'm going to make it hurt when I hit you, Ramatu-san. When he rejoined the others he was bombarded by excited stars from Toru. That was amazing. I didn't know you had that kind of power and to be able to launch the ball was so cool. And why didn't you tell me that you were the teacher's aide? Naruto chuckled as he rubbed the back of his head. You didn't ask. He then looked through her to see Koji. Hey, Koji. Toru looked behind her to see Koji waving shyly at him. Hey, what did you think of that throw? Koji gestured that he thought it was amazing before he slumped a bit. Naruto sighed before walking up to Koji. Hey, just because I showed that doesn't mean that your quirk is any less amazing. Heck, when I started using mine, it wasn't anywhere near as big as what I did. And your quirk has a lot of potential, you just need to see it. I'll help you with that later on. Koji smiled as he nodded to Naruto. Toru beamed as she brought her hands up. You're such a nice guy, Naruto. Naruto chuckled as he shook his head. Not really. I just like helping out where I can. And how does that not make you a nice guy? Naruto smirked mischievously at her before he heard some of the others speak. Pantaciro nudged Ejiro Kirishima as he excitedly said. Man, this is gonna be fun. We get to use our quirks as much as we want. Naruto watched as the others began to grow excited about using their powers. It was soon getting out of hand as it sounded more and more juvenile. Enough. This shout caused everyone to look at the blonde and Toru and Koji to flinch before he walked to stand in front of all of them. Naruto looked at the other students as he crossed his arms. You guys are acting like kids that just got told that they can play with their new toy. You're not here to play around, you're here to learn how to be heroes. If this is just going to be fun and games for you, then you should just become performers. This got some of them to gain serious looks as they understood his message. Aizawa stepped forward and eyed Naruto before looking at the others. I have to agree with him. You're here to become heroes and our job is to train you to become just that. Now, you are going to be put through 7 tests to determine your potential. It was then he gained a smirk on his face. And the one that gets the lowest score doesn't have any potential in a threatening manner finished with. And will be expelled immediately. This got everyone's attention as they all shouted in unison. What? Naruto turned his head and eyed Aizawa. He narrowed his eyes as he was immediately against this. Expel a guy for getting the lowest score. Like I'm going to let that happen. He may have said that they shouldn't take this lightly, but he didn't agree that anyone that showed little potential to be shut down immediately. Don't forget that you are here as his assistant. You're telling the guy that went against many of the Anbu back in Konoha. Not to mention I went against the Hokage's orders. He mentally said this as he thought about one event in particular. More like you were told about the Uchiha going off on his own without any more of the details and ran off with the Yamanaka and Hyuga pair to stop him. And let's not forget that he was supposed to get away due to the secret mission the old Senju had for him. My point still stands. He came back to the real world as he heard Aizawa tell the kids that real life isn't fair and villains will never play by the rules. Naruto could feel a small smidge of annoyance from the man as he said that and couldn't help but internally smirk. Oh, he's thinking of all the times I messed with him. He's a shinobi, why should he play fair? Seeing how that got them to lower their excitement, Aizawa nodded. Better. I'm not saying you shouldn't be excited to use your quirk, but don't think that this is all going to be fun and games. You become a hero, then the lives of the people around you are going to be in your hands. He smirked at the students and gestured for all of them to step forward. Show us that you aren't here by mistake. So began the testing of all of the students in various ways, such as grip strength, side-to-side jumping, meter dash, long jump, high jump, and the ball throw. Naruto performed each of the tasks before the other students did, and he could very well say that it was slightly annoying. Not doing the tasks, but with how much he had to hold back on some of them. He could get away with some of them, such as the long and high jump, since he just needed to manipulate his wind chakra to lift him off the ground and carry him over the obstacle. But for the grip strength, he had to pull back a substantial amount of chakra in order to not break the device in his hand. Sure, the device is meant to handle impressive amounts of pressure, but the density of his chakra could leak into the device and cause it to break. Not to mention that bijuu chakra gave him incredible power in the strength department, but his quirk is supposed to be wind manipulation, not super strength. He hated how his arm felt like it fell asleep as he had to pull a lot of chakra out of it. The meter dash was the same. He was fast enough to get past cameras and not be noticed. The only reason Nezu was able to catch him on the camera in one frame was due to him not taking that into account. He never went full speed in his escape, but ever since Nezu caught him, he had made his escape much faster. If the little animal could catch him like that, others could. Something he would not allow. He was glad he was able to get a more average score for those and was pleased that his other scores were beaten thanks to specified quirks. He couldn't help but laugh when his ball throw was beaten by infinity thanks to Uraraka's zero gravity quirk. He had watched the others do the same tasks and made mental notes on their quirks, what they could do with them, and what he could teach them. Great, I gained the same rank as Mizuki. Bleh. Oh well, at least I'm not going to be a traitorous prick who doesn't know when to give up. I almost feel oh wait, I don't feel bad for killing him unintentionally. It was his fault for pissing me off and getting struck by my bijuu chakra. Well, at least it showed me that my chakra is toxic to others. Not to mention that guy in the Chunin exams that absorbed chakra only to have his chakra coils destroyed by absorbing mine. Bad matchup on his part. He came out of his thoughts when he saw Midoriya walk up to the spot to attempt the ball throw. Midoriya had the worst scores on all the tests, even worse than Toru, whose quirk was just invisibility. The green-haired boy had not used his quirk at all, but from what he remembered, the guy's quirk was self-harming. Even more than when Naruto used the corroded form of his bijuu cloak early on. When Naruto used his bijuu cloak when he started his transition, it was almost like being set on fire that couldn't be put out, but from what he saw from Midoriya, it was like being hit by an Adama Rasengan without any sort of protection. And Naruto had a solid idea of how it felt from one of his moves. Naruto saw the look on Midoriya's face and could tell that the guy was putting all of his hopes into this throw. Whether or not he scores, I'm gonna have to work with him a lot. Gonna have to see him use it again to get an idea on how to help him. Naruto wasn't the only one that was watching Midoriya. The rest of the class was also paying attention to him as they knew that he had the worst score among all of them and wondered why he hadn't used his quirk yet. Iida crossed his arms and spoke. If Midoriya doesn't shape up, he will be the one to be sent home. Bakugo, who was standing by his side, looked at him as if he had something stupid. Ha. Of course, he will. He is nothing but a quirkless runt that doesn't belong here. Iida tilted his head and looked at him in confusion. Huh? He has a quirk. Didn't you hear what he did in the entrance exam? Ha. This caught the attention of a few others as they wondered what Bakugo meant by saying that Midoriya was quirkless. Many of them wondered if that was true, since Midoriya hadn't used any quirk throughout this whole test. Momoyae Rozu eyed Midoriya analytically as she wondered why he hadn't used his quirk. Why isn't he using it? Is he not taking this seriously? Professor Aizawa's intimidation tactic may have been a bit harsh, but he should still strive to show what he can do. Aizawa had the fiercest gaze as he eyed the boy with criticality. Midoriya was looking down at the ball in his hand as he thought about the scores he got from the previous tests. I haven't been able to get a decent score in any of the other tests. If I don't get a good number here, I will be expelled before I even start my path to be a hero. He gripped the ball hard in his hand as he grew determined to at least do his best. But if I can at least score high enough, I might not be expelled. He pulled his arm back as he channeled the power of one for all into the limb. Naruto saw the glow in Midoriya's arm and focused on the power the boy had. Let's see what you can do. Aizawa, however, activated his own quirk at Midoriya. This did not go unnoticed by Naruto. Midoriya threw the ball and expected his arm to hurt and the ball to be sent flying. What he got, however, was the ball only going a few dozen meters. What the? I erased your quirk. Everyone looked towards Aizawa to see his hair standing up and his eyes glowing red. Midoriya was wondering what he meant by erase, but when he saw Aizawa pull down the scarf he had, he saw a set of goggles that he knew belonged to one hero. Wait, those goggles your Eraserhead. You mainly work alone and don't like getting into the spotlight. The other students gathered together and talked about him. Aizawa chose to ignore them as he spoke. Are you planning on injuring yourself and getting healed up later? What no, he didn't get a chance to say anything as the scarf Aizawa had wrapped around him and pulled him in. You can't expect to just give one hit and leave the rest to those around you. Collapsing in the middle of a fight would make you nothing but a liability to everyone. Another person everyone has to look after. Midoriya began to wither under the hard gaze. And the words spoken to him were doing damage to his confidence and belief that he could make it as a hero. Someone like you doesn't have the right to be a hero. Midoriya felt a familiar stab in his heart at hearing those familiar words. He had been told that he could never be a hero and that someone quirkless like him should give up on being a hero. Hearing it from a teacher and a well-known hero was close to cementing that belief. Aizawa suddenly felt a hard tug on his scarf and he stumbled forward one step to find himself staring eye to eye with Naruto. I think you should learn to keep stupid words to yourself. The rest of the class went silent as they were witnessing someone their age going against their teacher. Aizawa's shock died down as he glared at the kid. I'm only saying what needs to be said. He noticed that he was being held down by his scarf as Naruto was gripping hard on it. Naruto narrowed his eyes. No. You're demeaning him to the point that he is going to give up before he even starts. It's the truth. I've seen his power and the result of it. One hit and he is out of commission. If he were to fight any villain, he would be a sitting duck after punching once. And you are just going to toss him aside before even teaching him anything. I thought this was a school to teach future heroes how to be a hero. If you are just going to toss out someone because they don't have what it takes, then you sure as hell don't know anything about teaching. Aizawa narrowed his eyes but kept them open to keep his intimidation tactic up. And what would you know? Naruto pulled harder on the scarf to get Aizawa closer to him. I was brought in to help them get into shape. You are here to teach them, I'm here to train them. I'm here to show them how they can use their quirks to be better heroes. There was something that seemed to change in the kid's overall air about him. At first, he seemed to be the happy type that would brush off serious matters as unimportant, then when he gained the attention of the other students, he got a bit serious. Now the look in his eyes almost brought a cold chill to the man's spine. It seemed dark. And how are you going to do that? Regardless of the kid's demeanor, Aizawa would not allow this show of insubordination. If this kid thinks he can do anything he wants just cause he has some special privileges, he is going to be sorely surprised. Naruto smirked at Aizawa. You said that after one hit, he would be useless. And yet his eyes shifted down to get Aizawa to do the same. Aizawa followed the gaze and saw something pointing at his stomach. He followed it and saw it was coming from Naruto's back. Once he got a good look at it, he saw it was a tail. All it takes is one good hit to take someone out. He let the scarf go, which had already released Midoriya, and stepped back. Everyone was now staring at the new appendage Naruto had swishing behind him. It was a long furry orange tail that had a single black line running down to the tip. It isn't a matter of the type of quirk, it's a matter of how you use it. He brought his tail to curl in front of him and pointed at it. This fluffy tail doesn't seem like much, but I have trained it to the point that it can be a force to be reckoned with. In an instant, the tip of the tail shot down into the ground, piercing it. And feared. As I said, it's how you use it. That is why I have been observing all of the students here to get an idea of how to train them. He looked at the other students and made sure that they heard him. I have an idea about many of them and if they are willing to learn more, I can help them. He let out a sigh as he looked back to Midoriya. You should take your turn, but know that if you can only take one shot, you better make it count. He stepped back towards the others but paused and looked over his shoulder at Aizawa. Let him do what he can and see if he can show you if he is a liability or not. Aizawa sighed as he moved to the side to observe Midoriya. He pulled out his eye drops before putting a drop in each eye. Whether he uses it or not, he won't be of any use. Whatever Naruto says, Midoriya doesn't belong here. And Naruto is too insubordinate to have any right to be here. I don't know why the principal is vouching for him, but the fact he hit his second quirk doesn't instill trust. Naruto crossed his arms as he watched Midoriya. Let's see what you can do. He only had 2 seconds after that thought till he spun around and grabbed the back of someone's uniform. He deadpanned at his capture. What are you doing, Toru? Toru began to waver her arms in the air as she was being held up by Naruto. Nothing. I wasn't doing anything. Naruto could see the blush and nervous wriggling she was doing. He continued to stare at her to get her to break. Okay. Okay. I wanted to see how fluffy your tail was. Why didn't you say that you had a tail? Naruto shrugged. I usually keep it hidden since it can cause problems. Ashura walked up to him and spoke up. Maybe I can show you how to make sure it doesn't bother you. He looked at the tail inquisitively as he compared it to his own. While his was more muscle with some hair at the end, Naruto's was much more like an animal's. Hoji got closer as he looked at Naruto. Well, it goes with the eyes and whiskers. Toru was let down by Naruto and brought her arms in front of her as she asked. Are you hiding anything else? Like, do you have fox ears too? They would make you look so cute. Naruto sweat dropped at the way the girl was asking and shook his head. Yeah, he did, but he wasn't going to show them. The tail was enough and he felt relieved that he let it out. As this was going on, Midoriya was looking at the ball as he thought about what he was told. He knew that if he used his quirk, he would be damaged beyond usefulness. I know Naruto was trying to help, but Izawa is right. If I can't use one for all without getting so damaged, I won't be of use to anyone. He was losing confidence in his ability to use the power that All Might gave him. It was then that something Naruto said got him thinking. It isn't a matter of the type of quirk, it's a matter of how you use it. Hiding behind the building was All Might, watching Midoriya and how he was doing. A little heavy-handed, but I guess that the point comes across. Though I don't think Izawa is going to let what the kid did slide. Not a great start. His eyes turned back to Midoriya. How are you going to do this, young Midoriya? You have to show them something, but are you going to risk your health in order to do this? Midoriya took a deep breath before pulling his arm back. Naruto tensed his legs in order to stop Izawa if the man tried to stop Midoriya again. The other students waited in anticipation at what his quirk would be. Midoriya focused on one for all so that he could concentrate it into one point. As he was at the apex of his throw, his index finger lit up yellow with veins of red energy. Naruto narrowed his eyes at it. There it is. Smash. With a shockwave, Midoriya threw the ball into the air. But most eyes were on the ball. Naruto was looking at Midoriya's hand. He could see that the damage to the finger was extensive and clearly the boy was holding in his cries of pain. Guess we are going to have to work on that first. He smiled when he saw Midoriya look at him and gave the best smile he could give. He responded by giving him a nice guy pose. Midoriya turned to look at Izawa and held his fist in front of him. Mr. Izawa, I am still standing and can keep going. Izawa's depressed frown turned into an impressed smile. This kid, he's got heart and knows how to prove me wrong in the best way he can. He looked down at the number and saw that he had the fourth best throw out of all of them. Though, he could also be considered third best since Uraraka's score was infinity, which would just be the outlier of the whole set. Speaking of Uraraka. That was amazing. She was pumping her fist in the air as she went up to the boy. Though, she stopped when she saw his finger. Are you okay? Midoriya blushed at the closeness of a girl and wrapped his undamaged hand around his face. I'm okay. A few others gathered around him and congratulated him for that. Deku. Everyone turned to the voice and saw Bakugo stomping his way toward the green-haired boy. They all separated as he made it to Midoriya and grabbed him by the collar. What the hell was that? Where the hell did you get a quirk like that? Midoriya panicked at the sudden confrontation. Well, you see. Well. Bakugo then felt a strong grip on the hand that was gripping Midoriya's shirt. He turned his head to see the other spiky-haired blonde glaring at him. I'd suggest you let him go, Bakugo. Bakugo glared back. Stay out of this, it doesn't concern you. It does when it's dating a fight between classmates when it isn't sanctioned. The two stared at each other and Naruto felt he needed to add a bit more. Focusing on Bakugo alone, he released a smidge of Kai. Bakugo suddenly felt nervous being in front of the other blonde and just shoved Midoriya away. Whatever. He moved away from the others as he shoved his hands into his pocket. Once he was a distance away, he looked over his shoulder at Deku again before he grit his teeth. Damn it. The whole class was staring up at the score list that tallied all of the points each of them gained. Naruto's eyes went straight to the last name and saw that Midoriya was dead last. Makes sense since he hasn't used his quirk for most of the tests. But I'll be damned if I let the living zombie take away his chance. And I was lying, no one is being sent home today. What? Naruto narrowed his eyes at the man as he continued. That was just a logical deception to have you put your all into these tests. A logical deception. Naruto raised an eyebrow at that. At least he can put on a smile when he lies. Izawa put his phone away and spoke to the others. You all have the rest of the day to yourself, but be ready cause we will start the lessons tomorrow. Oh, and Midoriya, go to the nurse's office to get that finger fixed. Midoriya nodded. Right. Izawa turned to Naruto and spoke. I would hold off on your announcement since there are some things that need to be discussed. Naruto crossed his arms as he gave a defiant look. I think I'll still give it anyway. I don't doubt I will still be going through with it. He had a feeling he knew what the man was really mad at. He had a good feel for the man with all the times they fought. It was always fun to mess with him, though it would sometimes be annoying with how he had to keep up the act of a quirk. Though he always found a way to get away with it. And now he is going to make things harder for you. You know how stiff this world is, and now that little rat is going to ask more questions. He can ask, but it isn't like he will get the full answer, was his response to Kurama's whining. He turned to the others and spoke. Now, as was said earlier, I am going to be a teacher's aide. This was set cause I have analyzed many different types of quirks and have come up with different ways for them to be used and how to counter them. Because of that and my skills, the principal has deemed me good enough to help you train in your quirk and find ways to improve it. This isn't to say that I am taking away the job of the teachers, they will still be the main source of knowledge you get. I am just going to set up a club for those who want to get better handling of their quirk. Enki brought his hand up in a confused gesture. And what could you teach us? You aren't any older than us, so what makes you qualified? Naruto smirked as he gave a tilt to his head. Well, for one. I can beat everyone here, most without using my quirk. Bakugo flexed his hand as he let out some small explosions. What did you say? Just because you have good quirks doesn't mean you are unbeatable. Like I said to Mr. Droopy Eyes. It isn't about the type of quirk, it's how you use it. But the club is optional. If you don't want to join, that is up to you, but if you do, then you can get a form from me when I have everything set up or teach when he isn't in a nap. Aizawa sighed before he turned around and began to leave. We will see if that club will even be set up after our meeting. He made his way to the side of the gym and was stopped as someone spoke to him. That was a bit harsh, don't you think? Aizawa turned to All Might who, if he could guess correctly, was giving him a bit of a disappointed look and raised an eyebrow. All Might pointed to the man as he brought his point up. You were serious about expelling the last one in the running. I've heard that you even expelled a whole class before when they didn't meet your expectations. The fact that you didn't means that you see the same potential in Midoriya that I do. Aizawa gave what could be seen as a cheeky look. Isn't it a bit early for you to pick favorites? Seeing the man flinch made him smirk, but it dropped a second later. The kid has some worth, but right now, he isn't the one I am concerned about. You're talking about your new aide. Aizawa nodded. I don't know why such a kid is given this role, but I don't trust him. From what I read, he only had the ability to use wind, nothing about him having a tail. The fact that he withheld information puts him on my watch list. Not to mention that he is ready to defy me at the drop of a hat. All Might crossed his arms. Perhaps, but he might have his own reason for it. If he wants to stay on the right side of the law, he needs to be honest. He began to walk away. And I'm going to see if even the principal knew about this. All Might hummed as he wondered if the boy would stay that long. Unknown to the two adults, Naruto was looking directly down on them from the roof. He smirked as he found it fun to mess with the depressing man, yet there was someone else he was interested in knowing was here. Well, I didn't think Toshinori would be part of the staff. Though he looked from them to the students that were talking to the original. With how he seemed focused on Midoriya, I guess he made his choice. Looks like we have our work cut out for us. It was then he disappeared in a puff of smoke. Naruto paused for a second as the memories came to his head. Good choice, but his eyes went to Midoriya and mentally grimace. Gonna have to fix that. He moved his tail as Toru tried, once again, to grab his tail. Without turning around, he spoke. No matter how hard you try, you will never be able to grab it. Ah, but I wanna. Nope. End of chapter. What if Naruto has a bijuu quirk in My Hero Academia? End here, and thanks for watching my video till the end.